Chapter 145. Pang Shi nodded, indicating that he understood. Lu Ming shook his head, indicating that he was speechless. Not long after, the two of them returned to the dormitory. After returning to the dormitory, Lu Ming began to cultivate diligently again. After 7 days of relaxation, Lu Ming was full of energy and his mind was clear. Cultivating martial skills was even easier. 3 days later, the airborne steps broke through again, reaching the 3rd level. The 3rd level of a black class upper martial skill was equivalent to the 6th level of a black class lower martial skill. At this stage of the airborne steps, Lu Ming could already walk on snow without leaving a trace and walk on the tips of the grass. This was the real meaning of flying on grass. If he continued to break through, walking on water would not be a problem. At this stage, Lu Ming spent more time on the true dragon art of combat and the blazing Vajra art. The cultivation of the physical body was indeed very slow. After a few months of cultivation, Lu Ming's physical body was still at the 2nd grade lesser mastery. There was still a long way to go before he reached the 2nd grade greater mastery. As for his cultivation, Lu Ming felt that he had reached the peak of the martial master realm. He was very close to the martial grandmaster realm, only a step away. Moreover, Lu Ming did not need to stop to accumulate, because he cultivated the true art of the battle dragon and had already reached the 3rd level. The density of his true qi was 4 times that of ordinary true qi. He had already accumulated enough. As long as he cultivated to perfection, he would naturally be able to break through. Time flew by, and in the blink of an eye, another 20 days had passed. The Mystic Essence Sword sect welcomed the annual disciple recruitment. Lu Ming had joined the Mystic Essence Sword sect for exactly a year. These few days, the Mystic Sword City was extremely lively. There were energetic young men and women everywhere. On the day of the assessment, there was a long queue in front of the Mystic Essence Sword sect's mountain gate. Lu Ming walked casually and came to a square near the front of the mountain. Those who passed the assessment had to come here to choose which courtyard to join. Come, join the Azure Dragon Courtyard. The Azure Dragon Courtyard is the oldest among the 4 courtyards. Come to our White Tiger Courtyard. The strongest among the 4 courtyards is our White Tiger Courtyard. The disciples of the 4 great academies were shouting here. On the square, the new disciples who had passed the test were gathered in 2s and 3s to discuss. Let's join the White Tiger Hall. The White Tiger Hall is the strongest among the 4 halls. If you join the White Tiger Hall, you will definitely have a brighter future. What do you know? Do you know that there's a bronze ranking for the 4 great academies' bronze-ranked disciples? I've heard that the 1st and 2nd place on the bronze ranking aren't from the White Tiger Hall. I've heard of that as well. It's said that the number 1 on the bronze rankings is Lu Ming from the Vermilion Bird Courtyard. He's a disciple who just entered last year and rushed to the top of the bronze rankings the moment he entered. It's said that not long ago, he even defeated a disciple from the Qilin Courtyard who had a special bloodline. Well, how did you know that? My big brother is a silver-ranked disciple. Of course it was him who told me. Then shall we join the Vermilion Bird Courtyard? All right. A few youths discussed for a while before walking towards the entrance of the Vermilion Bird Courtyard. Let's go. I want to join the Vermilion Bird Courtyard. Lu Ming is my idol and also my goal. I must become the newcomer king this year. On the other side, a few youths walked over. One of the youths who was full of heroic spirit said, "Chasing after Lu Ming? With just you? Aren't you thinking too much? How can an ordinary person catch up to such a person?" Another youth said in disdain. The few of them argued and went towards the Vermilion Bird Courtyard to register. The Vermilion Bird Courtyard's disciple who was in charge of registration couldn't stop smiling. The disciples from the other courtyards were incomparably envious. Lu Ming smiled. He didn't expect that he would be so famous now. Even many youths who hadn't entered the courtyard had heard of his name. Furthermore, he had promoted the Vermilion Bird Courtyard's disciple recruitment, which was something he didn't expect. After that, Lu Ming didn't stop and walked towards the Vermilion Bird Courtyard. Junior brother Lu Ming. At this moment, a Vermilion Bird Courtyard's disciple who was in charge of registration saw Lu Ming and greeted him with a smile. Immediately, The gazes of those disciples who had just entered the courtyard gathered on Lu Ming. Lu Ming? Could he be Lu Ming? He's so young? He's about the same age as us. Nonsense, Lu Ming entered the courtyard last year. Of course he's about the same age as us. He's Lu Ming? He's so handsome. There were both male and female disciples who had just entered the courtyard. They all looked at Lu Ming with admiration. Lu Ming smiled bitterly and nodded towards the senior disciple. Then he walked towards the Vermilion Bird courtyard. It's time to break through to the martial Grand Master realm. Lu Ming muttered. He came out today mainly to relax and adjust his state of mind. He was preparing to break through to the martial Grand Master realm. He wasn't the first person on the bronze list to break through. Half a month ago, he heard that Jianghu had already broken through to the martial Grand Master realm. He believed that many geniuses who had stayed on the bronze list for 1 or 2 years would choose to break through. Along the way, Lu Ming didn't return to the dormitory. Instead, he walked towards the top of the Vermilion Bird Peak. The place he wanted to go was called the Phoenix Resting Cave. It was one of the more famous cultivation grounds in the Vermilion Bird courtyard. Legend had it that a true phoenix once lived there. Hence, it was called the Phoenix Resting Cave. Of course, this was only a legend. Not many people believed it. A true phoenix was an immemorial divine beast. It had long disappeared from the world. Some people speculated that in the distant past, there might have been a supreme flying beast living there. The spiritual chi in the Phoenix Resting Cave was extremely rich. Moreover, it leaned towards the fire attribute. It was very suitable for a breakthrough. Under normal circumstances, if a disciple of the Vermilion Bird courtyard wanted to enter the Phoenix Resting Cave to cultivate, they had to pay contribution points. Moreover, it wasn't something that could be entered with contribution points. The quota was extremely limited. However, Lu Ming didn't need contribution points. This was the reward given to him by the Vermilion Bird courtyard when he won first place in the 4-courtyard tournament. He could enter the Phoenix Resting Cave to cultivate for a month. Lu Ming's journey was smooth. Soon he arrived in front of the Phoenix Resting Cave. The entrance of the Phoenix Resting Cave was sealed by a stone gate. In front of the gate, there was an old man guarding it. The old man had his eyes closed and was motionless. Stop. The Phoenix Resting Cave is an important place in the Vermilion Bird courtyard. You can't enter at will. Suddenly, the elder guarding the door opened his eyes. Lu Ming seemed to see 2 beams of sword gleams shooting out. An aura as strong as a mountain emanated from the elder's body. An expert. He's definitely a martial arts grandmaster expert. Lu Ming's heart skipped a beat. I'm here to cultivate in the Phoenix Resting Cave. Lu Ming cupped his fists and bowed. Cultivate? If I remember correctly, there's no quota for this month. The old man said, I'm Lu Ming. Principal Yen said that I can come at any time. Lu Ming took out his identity jade badge and handed it to the old man. You're Lu Ming? The old man's eyes lit up. He took the identity jade badge and smiled. Not bad. You can enter at any time. The time limit is 1 month. Go in. The old man returned the identity jade badge to Lu Ming. With a wave of his hand, the stone gate of the Phoenix Resting Cave opened. Thank you, Senior. Chapter 146. As soon as Lu Ming entered the Phoenix Perch Cave, he felt a strong surge of heaven and earth spiritual energy. What a strong heaven and earth spiritual energy. It's more than 10 times stronger than outside. Lu Ming was secretly shocked. He had just entered the cave and there was already such a strong heaven and earth spiritual energy. If he cultivated here for a long time, his cultivation speed would definitely be terrifying. Unfortunately, this was impossible because the rate of heaven and earth spiritual energy was limited. Lu Ming continued walking. After about 10 meters, Lu Ming saw that there were stone rooms on both sides of the cave. They must be for the people who came in to cultivate. Lu Ming continued walking. The heaven and earth spiritual energy became even stronger. After 100 meters, the heaven and earth spiritual energy was more than 10 times stronger than outside. This was the place with the strongest heaven and earth spiritual energy in the Phoenix Perch Cave. Lu Ming did not continue walking. He walked into a stone room at the side and closed the stone door. Lu Ming sat down cross-legged. With a flash of blood, the spirit-devouring bloodline appeared. After his bloodline was promoted to rank 5, the spirit-devouring bloodline grew a little. It was no different from a small snake. When the spirit-devouring bloodline appeared, it opened its mouth and sucked. The heaven and earth spiritual energy in the surroundings surged and gathered towards Lu Ming. It was absorbed by the bloodline and turned into energy that entered Lu Ming's body. Lu Ming circulated the true dragon battle art and continuously refined the energy that entered his body into true qi. Lu Ming's cultivation continued to solidify and approached the martial Grand Master realm. Lu Ming was not in a hurry to break through. Instead, he continued to polish his realm and strengthen his foundation. In the blink of an eye, 20 days passed. It's time! Lu Ming's heart skipped a beat. The qi vortex in his dantian spun rapidly. The true qi in his meridians surged like a river. Every stream of true qi was like a small true dragon. Lu Ming could even hear the roar of a dragon. All the true qi gathered together and started to break through the bottleneck of the martial Grand Master realm. Boom, boom. A series of thunderous booms resounded in the air. Of course, the outside world couldn't hear it. All of this was happening inside Lu Ming's body. Time and time again, the spiritual energy of heaven and earth continued to gather and flow into Lu Ming's body, replenishing his true energy. After an unknown amount of time, Lu Ming's body suddenly shook, and a powerful aura erupted from Lu Ming's body. This aura was 10 times stronger than before. At this moment, Lu Ming's body was like a black hole. The spiritual energy between heaven and earth was crazily converging towards Lu Ming. All of it was absorbed by Lu Ming and transformed into an even more majestic true energy. So powerful! Is this the strength of a martial Grand Master? His true qi is 10 times stronger than the peak of the 9th level martial master. Lu Ming was delighted. Condense! With a thought, Lu Ming gently waved his right hand, and a fiery red spear appeared in Lu Ming's hand. Condensing qi into a weapon, this was something only a martial Grand Master could do. Condensing qi into a weapon was like condensing a substance. Although it couldn't compare to a real spiritual weapon, it wasn't too far off. The key was that as long as one's true qi was not exhausted, it would be endless. Shwa! Lu Ming waved his hand, and the spear in his hand shot out like lightning. With a qi sound, it pierced through the wall of the stone room, and more than half of it went in. However, as soon as the spear left his hand, it turned into energy and dissipated between heaven and earth. It was said that when one reached the advanced martial Grand Master realm, the condensed weapon would not dissipate. It could stay for a few days and could even be lent to others to fight. It was similar to a real weapon. After breaking through to the martial Grand Master realm, Lu Ming's combat strength had increased tremendously. However, Lu Ming did not leave immediately. Instead, he continued to cultivate. He only had a month to cultivate in the Phoenix Perch Cave. There were still a few days left, so he could use it to consolidate his cultivation. A few days passed in the blink of an eye. Lu Ming stood up and walked out of the Phoenix Perch Cave, returning to his dormitory. After returning to the dormitory, he saw Hua Qi sitting in the courtyard in a daze. No one knew what he was thinking. Lu Ming, you're back. I've been waiting for you for a few days. Seeing Lu Ming push open the door, Hua Qi's eyes lit up. Waiting for me? What's the matter? Lu Ming asked. I'm going to leave the Mystic Essence Sword sect for a while. I wanted to say goodbye to you. Hua Qi said. Leave the Mystic Essence Sword sect? Where are you going? Lu Ming was stunned. Hua Qi sighed, as if he had a lot on his mind. After a while, he said, something happened at home, so I have to rush back. I'm afraid I won't return to the Mystic Essence Sword sect for a long time. Won't return to the Mystic Essence Sword sect for a long time? Lu Ming frowned slightly. Actually, Hua Qi had always been very mysterious in his eyes. Hua Qi had never mentioned his background. Even Lu Ming and Pang Shi didn't know what Hua Qi's bloodline rank was. They only knew that Hua Qi's talent was shocking. When he first entered the sect, Hua Qi's cultivation was in the martial master realm. After a year, Hua Qi's cultivation had risen to the martial master realm. This was already shocking for an ordinary genius. It was definitely a top talent. Moreover, they only knew that Hua Qi was very rich. Before, they were all friends, so Lu Ming and Pang Shi didn't ask too much. After all, everyone had their own secrets. But now Lu Ming was curious. But since Hua Qi didn't say anything, Lu Ming wouldn't ask either. Then we'll meet again. Lu Ming clasped his fists. Lu Ming, Big Stone accepted a mission to exterminate the Dongyi tribe 7 days ago. He's heading to Dongke City. When you see him, help me say goodbye to him. Hua Qi continued. Okay, no problem. Wait, exterminate the Dongyi tribe? What's going on? Lu Ming started to nod, but suddenly remembered something and asked in surprise. The Dongyi tribe was a tribe that lived in the coastal mountains. They had millions of people and could communicate with beasts. They were a big threat to the east of the Burning Sun Empire. The east of the Burning Sun Empire was guarded by the Mystic Essence Sword sect. The Dongyi tribe couldn't do anything and could only hide in the coastal mountains. Could it be that the Dongyi tribe was making a move again? Hua Qi nodded and said, 10 days ago, the Dongyi tribe sent out 100,000 troops to attack the area around Dongke City. They took down 6 cities in a row, but were stopped at Dongke City. The sect has issued a mission for the disciples of the 4 great schools to go and exterminate the Dongyi tribe. Killing the Dongyi tribe and the demonic beasts they lead will earn you a corresponding amount of contribution points. Right now, many disciples of the 4 great schools are heading to Dongke City. Lu Ming nodded and roughly knew what was going on. The coastal mountains were endless and covered the east of the Burning Sun Empire. The Mystic Essence Sword sect was only near the middle of the coastal mountains. There was still a long distance to the north and south. Dongke City was about 20,000 miles south of the Mystic Essence Sword sect. It was close to the coastal mountains. Don't worry, I'll tell Big Stone. Lu Ming nodded and said, Okay, then I'll be going. Hua Qi said and walked out. After a few steps, he stopped and said, Lu Ming, if there's a chance, you and Big Stone can come to the Imperial City and find me. The Imperial City? Lu Ming's eyes suddenly brightened. Was Hua Qi's family in the Imperial City? Hua Qi didn't say much and walked out, disappearing in the blink of an eye. The Imperial City? I'll go there sooner or later. Chapter 147. Lu Ming pondered for a while before heading to the mission hall. He was going to accept the mission to exterminate the Eastern barbarians. Killing the Eastern barbarians and their demonic beasts would not only earn him contribution points, but Lu Ming could also devour their blood essence to increase his cultivation. Killing 2 birds with 1 stone. Arriving at the mission hall, he easily accepted the mission. After receiving the mission token, Lu Ming rushed to Dongke City. He did not ride on his mount, but used his movement skill to rush over. With his current movement skill, he was much faster than the green scale horse. Moreover, the process of rushing over was also a process of cultivating his movement skill. Using the airborne steps, Lu Ming's body was as light as a gust of wind. He stepped on the grass with the tip of his foot and flew dozens of meters forward. He was as light as a swan and disappeared in the blink of an eye. At this speed, Lu Ming arrived at the outskirts of Dongke City in merely 3 days. Dongke City was undoubtedly a big city. The city walls were more than 30 meters tall, which was many times larger than Firestorm City. At this time, the gates of Dongke City were tightly shut, and the city walls were guarded by soldiers in iron armor. The city was heavily guarded. Stop, who are you? When Lu Ming arrived at the city gates, an armored general on the city walls shouted, I am a disciple of the Mystic Essence Sword sect. Lu Ming took out his jade identity token and waved it gently. The token flew up the city walls. You are indeed a disciple of the Mystic Essence Sword sect. Open the city gates. After checking the jade identity token, the armored general threw it back to Lu Ming and ordered. Crack crack. The city gates opened slightly and Lu Ming walked in. After Lu Ming entered, the city gates closed immediately. Behind the city gates, there were many armored soldiers on guard. There were more of them than on the city walls. Dongke City was guarded by a legion of the Burning Sun Empire. There were 50,000 soldiers, all of whom were elites. Their purpose was to intimidate the eastern barbarians. Now that the royal family was on the decline and the sects were on the rise, although the armies of the Burning Sun Empire still listened to the royal family on the surface, they actually listened to the sects more. Take Dongke City's army for example. On the surface, it appeared that they were under the command of the imperial family, but in reality, they were under the command of the Mystic Essence Sword sect. Therefore, they would report to the Mystic Essence Sword sect whenever something happened. Young hero, the disciples of the Mystic Essence Sword sect are all in the first camp. Let me take you there. A soldier walked up to Lu Ming and said, "All right." Lu Ming nodded. He followed the soldier and headed to the first camp. As soon as he entered the camp, he heard a commotion. What a joke! You guys haven't even reached Martial Master Realm Stage 4, yet you actually dare to accept this mission. Are you guys really fucking crazy for contribution points? You really don't want to live anymore. Let me tell you, if you embarrass our Mystic Essence Sword sect on the battlefield, I won't forgive you. A few trash below the 4th level of the Martial Master Realm. When the time comes, no one will save you. Arrogant voices sounded in Lu Ming's ears. Lu Ming followed the voice and walked over. As he got closer, he saw a few groups of people gathered together. They were obviously disciples of the Mystic Essence Sword sect. Big Stone. Lu Ming spotted Pang Shi among the small group of people at one glance. At that moment, Pang Shi's face was flushed red. He was blocked by another group of people with 3 or 4 other people. Our cultivation is low, but we won't charge at the front. We can at least kill some scattered Dongi tribesmen, right? Pang Shi said in a low, muffled voice. Kill scattered Dongi tribesmen? So you guys are here to take advantage of us. Get back to the sect immediately. Do you think you can take advantage of the White Tiger sect? A young man with triangular eyes said coldly opposite Pang Shi. Nonsense. Who said we're here to take advantage of you? I won't take advantage of you. Pang Shi replied loudly. The young man with triangular eyes said coldly, How dare you talk back? Are you looking for a beating? There were other disciples of the Mystic Essence Sword sect at the side, but none of them interfered. They were all watching the show. Looking for a beating? Who do you think you can beat? Lu Ming walked over and said indifferently. The young man with triangular eyes said coldly and turned to Lu Ming. However, when he saw Lu Ming's face, his face froze. Lu Ming. The young man with triangular eyes said in a daze. The other people's faces also changed slightly. However, there were also some people who were watching with great interest. This time, it wasn't just the bronze disciples who came, there were also many silver disciples who came. Senior brother Lu Ming, you're here too. Pang Shi was overjoyed when he saw Lu Ming. Big Stone. Lu Ming smiled and walked over. Then, he looked at the young man with triangular eyes and said, Who did you say you wanted to beat? The young man with triangular eyes stammered for a long time, but he did not say a word. Lu Ming, junior brother Ming is doing it for their own good. They are disciples of the Vermilion Bird Courtyard, right? Their cultivation is too low, not even Martial Master Level 4. If they go to the battlefield with such cultivation, it will be very dangerous. Junior brother Ming is doing it for their safety. At this moment, a young man behind the young man with triangular eyes walked up and said, Yes, that's right. After seeing this young man, the young man with triangular eyes was emboldened. Oh. Lu Ming responded with an oh, and then asked the triangular-eyed man, What is your cultivation level then? Peak Martial Master Level 6. The young man with triangular eyes replied confidently. Peak Martial Master Level 6? It's very dangerous to go to the battlefield with such a low cultivation. Hurry up and go back. Lu Ming said indifferently and added, I'm doing it for your own good. You? The young man with triangular eyes' face turned red. Lu Ming, don't be unreasonable. Another young man said coldly. Who do you think you are? Lu Ming looked at him from the corner of his eyes. How dare you, Lu Ming? Don't think that you can be arrogant just because you are first on the bronze list. No matter how talented you are, you can only show off among the bronze disciples. Senior brother Du is a silver disciple, a martial master level 2 expert. He can easily suppress you. Now that we are talking to you nicely, don't fail to appreciate our kindness. The young man with triangular eyes pointed at Lu Ming and shouted loudly. Although Lu Ming's battle strength was very strong, he was only a martial master. Although his talent was heaven-defying and he could defeat or even kill a martial master level 1 expert. However, a martial master level 1 and a martial master level 2 were two different concepts. A martial master level 1 expert could not fight back against a martial master level 2 expert. This was the confidence of the young man with triangular eyes. He did not believe that Lu Ming could fight against a martial master level 2 expert. Martial master level 2? No wonder you are so arrogant. Lu Ming curled his lips and sneered as he waved his hand. But the young man with triangular eyes was sent flying. I don't know how to appreciate your kindness, so what? Lu Ming's indifferent voice sounded, followed by the sound of the young man with triangular eyes landing heavily on the ground. Lu Ming, you are too arrogant. Do you really think that no one can stop you? Chapter 148. Of course, there is someone who can defeat me, but unfortunately, it can't be you. Lu Ming curled his lips and laughed. Senior brother Du, you must avenge me. At this moment, the triangular-eyed man struggled to get up and cried out. Unfortunately, one side of his face was swollen like a pig's head. Blood flowed from his mouth and several of his teeth were missing. Senior Du's expression became even more unsightly. Beside him, a few other silver disciples of the White Tiger Hall also walked over with an unfriendly expression. However, they were all first-layer martial masters. This Lu Ming is still as domineering as before. At the side, some disciples from the other halls were watching and someone commented. Geniuses are all like that. However, I feel that going too far is as bad as falling short. Even if you are a genius, you still have to be patient when you need to be patient. Because a genius who has not grown up is just an ordinary warrior. If you blindly act domineeringly and act according to your temperament, you will definitely suffer. You are right. This Lu Ming's battle strength is indeed very strong. Even a first-layer martial master would be at a disadvantage against him. However, it is impossible for him to be a match for a second-layer martial master. Watch carefully, he is up against Du Feng. He will soon be at a disadvantage. The people at the side were whispering. Lu Ming, do you know why many geniuses fall early? It is because they do not know how to restrain themselves. When facing an undefeatable opponent, they still act high and mighty. That is why they fall before they mature. Senior Du said coldly. Lu Ming smiled faintly. Nonsense. When facing an undefeatable opponent, of course you have to restrain yourself. Do I need you to tell me that? However, when facing an opponent that can be suppressed with a flip of the palm, why should I restrain myself? The surrounding people were somewhat stunned. Lu Ming's meaning was clear. He could suppress Du Feng with a flip of the palm. Ha! Du Feng laughed out of extreme anger and said, let's see how you will suppress me with a flip of the palm. Don't. Du Feng took a step forward. It was as if a heavy hammer hammered the ground, producing a violent rumble. The aura on his body burst out. It was thick and powerful like a mountain. It was much stronger than a 9th-layer martial master. It could be said that a 2nd-level martial master could kill a 9th-level martial master with a flip of his hand. Du Feng's hand glowed and a green longsword condensed. It looked as if it was carved from green jade. Du Feng's sword slashed down towards Lu Ming. Sword chi whistled, extremely shocking. Stronger than Jianghu. Lu Ming's eyes flickered. As expected of a 2nd-layer martial grandmaster. With Jianghu's battle prowess, killing a 1st-layer martial grandmaster should be easy. However, he should not be a match for a 2nd-layer martial grandmaster. However, Lu Ming was not at the 9th-level martial master. Boom! Without even looking, Lu Ming punched out. His fist was wrapped in a layer of fiery red light, making Lu Ming's fist look like a fireball. Boom! It was unstoppable and unstoppable. Lu Ming's punch directly destroyed the sword aura that Du Feng slashed out, the combat sword that was condensed from his vital energy, and so on. Lu Ming's punch did not stop and continued to bombard. How can this be? In an instant, Du Feng's eyes widened and flashed with disbelief. Then he roared and exploded with all his strength. His body retreated quickly. His hand glowed and a real spirit weapon appeared in front of him. Clang! Tang Feng's fist smashed onto the spirit weapon sword. A violent force erupted and Du Feng's body was blasted away like a cannonball. He crashed into the wall more than 30 meters away, smashing the wall and causing a burst of smoke and dust to fill the air. Hiss hiss hiss, gasps could be heard from the audience. The disciples of the 4 great academies stared so hard that their eyeballs almost popped out. One punch, just one punch, and Du Feng was sent flying. He was not a match at all. He was as weak as a chicken. How is this possible? Could it be that Lu Ming has already broken through to the martial Grand Master realm? How can he be so fast? But that's the only possibility. Otherwise, he wouldn't be so strong. For geniuses like them, it's easy for them to step into the martial Grand Master realm. They had never heard of a 9th-layer martial master being able to send a 2nd-layer martial Grand Master flying with one punch. They guessed that Lu Ming should have stepped into the martial Grand Master realm. The triangular-eyed man was also dumbfounded. When he reacted, his whole body was trembling in fear. Du Feng struggled to get up from the shattered wall. His body was covered in dust and he was in a very sorry state. Lu Ming, just you wait. This time, there are 3rd-layer martial grandmasters and even 4th-layer martial grandmasters from the White Tiger Hall. Let's wait and see. Du Feng fiercely threw down a sentence and then left with his tail between his legs. It was too embarrassing. He couldn't stay for a second longer. The triangular-eyed man also hurriedly left with Du Feng. Lu Ming smiled and didn't care. Senior brother Lu Ming, you've become stronger again. Pang Shi walked over and said, Big Stone, how many days have you been here? Come, tell me about the situation. Lu Ming changed the topic. I've only been here for 2 days. The two of them came to a military camp. Pang Shi introduced the place to Lu Ming. According to Pang Shi, the Dongyi tribe attacked Dongkai City 3 days ago. However, they retreated not long after and didn't continue to attack for the past 2 days. Big Stone, when the battle starts, he can't be impulsive. Lu Ming warned. During the battle, tens of thousands of soldiers would attack. Pang Shi's cultivation was indeed lower. Now, he was only a 2nd-layer martial master. I know. I just want to train. I won't die for nothing. Pang Shi scratched his head. Then he walked around with Pang Shi. In the military camp, the army had already gone out to stand guard. Only the disciples of the Mystic Essence Sword sect were here. The disciples of the Mystic Essence Sword sect had a special status. Therefore, when there was no battle, they were more casual and could do whatever they wanted. The first day was peaceful. On the second day, it was still peaceful. The Dongyi tribe didn't make any moves. In the past 2 days, the disciples of the White Tiger sect didn't cause trouble for Lu Ming either. On the 3rd day of Lu Ming's arrival, suddenly, the war drums rumbled like thunder, resounding in the military camp. The Dongyi tribe is attacking. Let's go and kill them. My contribution points are here. There were more than 2,000 disciples of the Mystic Essence Sword sect in the past few days. Most of them were bronze-level disciples and a small number of silver-level disciples. There were about 100 of them. They had been bored out of their wits for the past few days. Now that they heard the war drums, they were all energized and rushed toward the city wall. Lu Ming, Pang Shi, and a few others also rushed toward the city wall. When they arrived at the city wall, the army of Dongkai City was fully armed. Bows and crossbows were ready. Rumble! At this moment, in the distance, at the end of the coastal mountain range, there was a sudden rumble and the ground shook. Then, a dark cloud appeared at the end of the earth. No, those weren't dark clouds. They were beasts. There were countless beasts. There were tigers, wolves, leopards, and all kinds of beasts. There were even flying beasts. There were 1 or 2 human figures sitting on each of the demonic beasts. They were the Dongyi tribe. There were at least tens of thousands of beasts. Roar! Chapter 149. The faces of the Mystic Essence Sword Sect disciples changed. Some of them looked grave. Some of them were pale and their eyes were filled with fear. Tens of thousands of demonic beasts gathered together, and there were even more Dongi tribesmen among them. The aura they formed was too strong. It was overwhelming, as if it could crush everything. Other than cultivating, the Mystic Essence Sword Sect disciples usually fought one-on-one with others. When had they ever seen such a scene? Now that they saw it, they were terrified. They used to be arrogant and did not take the Dongi tribesmen seriously. They thought that they were only here to snatch contribution points. Now, they no longer thought that way. This was a real war. It was good enough that they could survive such a war. Some people only felt their legs go soft and were already thinking of retreating. Among them, only Lu Ming had comprehended force. Lu Ming was able to use the force of fire to fight against the force of thousands of beasts. That was why he was not shocked. "Get ready!" An armored general on the city wall shouted. The movements of the soldiers on the city wall were uniform. Their longbows were drawn, and the bowstrings were fully drawn. Their eyes were fixed on the demonic beast army that was rolling towards them. Most of the soldiers were martial soldiers. Their cultivation might not be as strong as the Mystic Essence Sword Sect disciples, but they were used to war. Their mental fortitude was much stronger than the Mystic Essence Sword Sect disciples. Rumble. The tremors became more intense. The army of tens of thousands of demonic beasts was slowly approaching. Kill. When they were close enough, the armored general gave the order. Kill. Kill. On the city wall, the army of tens of thousands roared. Their roars shook the heavens. Bush, bush. Then, the bows and arrows were shot out. Like a dark cloud, the arrows shot towards the demonic beast army. Suddenly, the demonic beasts in the army were hit by the arrows and fell to the ground. However, that was only a small part of the army. More demonic beasts continued to charge forward fearlessly. Continue shooting. Whoosh, whoosh. Another wave of dense arrows shot towards the demonic beasts. Roars shook the heavens and blood filled the air. It was a tragic scene. Some of the Mystic Essence Sword Sect disciples broke out in cold sweat. In such a situation, no matter how powerful one's cultivation was or how powerful one's Jinchi protection was, one would still be pierced through by the rain of arrows. Ouch, my stomach hurts a little. I need to relieve myself. A Mystic Essence Sword Sect disciple suddenly clutched his stomach and screamed. Then he turned around and ran. My stomach hurts a little too. What a coincidence. When the others saw this, they also slipped away. In the blink of an eye, dozens of people had left. Lu Ming shook his head. He was scared off just like that. Such a person's future achievements would be very limited. Young heroes, there's no need for you to act now. You'll have to deal with the Dongi experts and high-level demonic beasts. An old man in iron armor walked over and said. Lu Ming recognized this person. He was the city lord of Dongke City, Fuliang. Lu Ming and the rest nodded. The walls of Eastern K City were tall and majestic, and the demonic beasts below were mostly level 1 demonic beasts. It would not be easy for level 1 demonic beasts to attack. Level 2 and even level 3 demonic beasts would require Mystic Essence Sword Sect disciples. This was because there were not many martial grandmasters in the army of Dongke City. Most of them were generals. Whoosh! At this moment, the Dongi people began to counterattack. They shot out small arrows from the bodies of the demonic beasts. Defend! With a loud roar, shields were erected on the city walls. Clang! Clang! All the arrows shot by the Dongi people hit the shields. Only a few of them hit the soldiers of Dongke City. Counterattack! Another round of arrows was shot from the city walls. After a few rounds, the demonic beasts were already close to the city walls. Charge! Break into Dongke City and take all the treasures and women. The Dongi people roared. Charge! Charge! The Dongi people roared and controlled the demonic beasts to charge up the city walls. On the city walls, rolling logs and blazing fire barrels rained down in torrents. Screams of agony were heard. This was completely different from a one-on-one fight between martial artists. Many of the Mystic Essence Sword sect disciples felt their mouths go dry. Lu Ming finally understood why the Mystic Essence Sword sect wanted the disciples of the 4 campuses to take on this mission. It was nothing more than training. Only by going through such a bloody battle could one's will become stronger. Finally, a demonic beast charged up the city walls. The Dongyi people on the beast shot out long arrows. Most of the Dongyi people were bare-chested. They were strong and had a longbow on their back and a scimitar on their waist. Charge! Fu Liang roared. He pulled out his battle saber and slashed at a Dongyi man. The saber pierced through the air and split the Dongyi man and his demonic beast in half. Fu Liang was at least a level 3 martial grandmaster. He was extremely powerful. Charge! The other Mystic Essence Sword sect disciples roared and charged. Suddenly, sword chi, saber chi, and fist energy flashed on the city walls. Big Stone, follow me! Lu Ming shouted. With a flick of his hand, the fiery tongue spear appeared. He stabbed out and nailed a demonic beast to the city walls. The Mystic Essence Sword sect disciples were undeniably strong. The moment they attacked, the demonic beasts and Dongyi people on the city walls were instantly killed. Retreat! Retreat! Suddenly, a loud roar came from the Dongyi people. Then the horn sounded. Countless demonic beasts retreated toward the coastal mountains like a tide. Everyone was stunned. They retreated just like that? Was it just the beginning? Haha, the Dongyi people are just SOSO. Some of the Mystic Essence Sword sect disciples were emboldened and laughed. Fu Liang frowned and pondered for a while. Something is wrong. How could the Dongyi people retreat as soon as they attacked? It doesn't make sense. Mayor Fu, maybe the Dongyi people are afraid of us because we have too many experts. A Mystic Essence Sword sect disciple laughed. Fu Liang frowned and said nothing. Lu Ming was also deep in thought. He had a feeling that things were not as simple as they seemed. The Dongyi people came quickly and left quickly. Soon they were nowhere to be seen. Next, it was time to clean up the battlefield. Lu Ming pretended to help. In fact, his goal was the blood essence of the demonic beasts and the Dongyi experts. However, the blood essence of low-level demonic beasts and martial artists was of little help to Lu Ming. Lu Ming specifically chose high-level demonic beasts and martial artists, but there were very few of them. There was not even a single martial grandmaster. Absorbing the blood essence of dozens of demonic beasts and martial artists above the 6th level of the martial grandmaster realm did not help Lu Ming much. After the battle, Lu Ming and the others went back to rest. A day later, the war drums sounded again. Everyone rushed to the city walls. As expected, the Dongyi people were attacking again. However, this time was similar to the last time. The Dongyi people had just started their attack and retreated. It was the same on the 3rd day. At this time, many people felt that something was wrong. Chapter 150. Fu Liang sensed that something was amiss. He sent out scouts to patrol around Dongkai City, fearing that the Dongyi tribe was up to something. On the 4th day, the Dongyi tribe came again. However, this time, the Dongyi tribe's beast army did not attack. Instead, they stopped a few thousand meters away from Dongkai City. That was beyond the range of the crossbows. Everyone on the city wall looked at each other, wondering what the Dongyi tribe was up to. At this moment, a young man rode a tiger and rushed forward a few hundred meters. He looked at Dongkai City and shouted, "There must be many disciples of the Mystic Essence Sword sect among you, right? I heard that the Mystic Essence Sword sect is one of the 5 major sects of the Burning Sun Empire. Today, I would like to see it for myself. I am Bach, 19 years old. I challenge all the geniuses of the Mystic Essence Sword sect below the age of 20. Who wants to fight me?" His voice echoed throughout the city. The tens of thousands of soldiers on Dongkai City were stunned. The Dongyi tribe did not come to attack the city. Instead, they sent a young man to challenge the geniuses of the Mystic Essence Sword sect. Is the Dongyi tribe trying to use this to attack our morale? Fu Liang frowned and pondered. However, They had to accept the Dongyi tribe's challenge. The Dongyi tribe was only a small tribe with a population of a few million. Compared to the Burning Sun Empire, they were many times weaker. A small tribe sending a young man to challenge the geniuses of the Mystic Essence Sword sect, one of the 5 major sects of the Burning Sun Empire. If they did not accept the challenge, the Dongyi tribe would definitely say that the Mystic Essence Sword sect was afraid of them. This would definitely affect the morale of the army. Young heroes, do any of you want to fight? Fu Liang asked the disciples of the Mystic Essence Sword sect. We can fight, but be careful of traps. Many disciples of the Mystic Essence Sword sect hesitated. If they left the city and were attacked by the Dongyi tribe, wouldn't they die in vain? The Eastern barbarians seemed to have guessed the crowd's thoughts. The army of demonic beasts slowly retreated. They only stopped when they had retreated 10 miles. Even if they wanted to attack, the disciples of the Mystic Essence Sword sect would have enough time to escape to Dongkai City. Junior brothers, which of you wants to go up and fight? A young man in his 20s asked from the Mystic Essence Sword sect. The Dongyi tribe wanted to challenge those under the age of 20. Since they dare to fight, they must be strong. We must not be careless. Some people were more cautious. What kind of genius can a mere Dongyi tribe have? To be able to cultivate to the 9th realm of the Martial Master realm at the age of 19 is already very impressive. However, some people were disdainful. To reach the 9th level of the Martial Master realm at the age of 19, even in the Mystic Essence Sword sect, he could be considered a decent genius. For example, many of the people on the bronze list were already 18 or 19 years old. Some of the older disciples were even in their 20s. I think it's better to be cautious. What if the other party is a martial grandmaster? Someone asked cautiously. First layer martial grandmaster at most. I'll go and fight. In the White Tiger courtyard, a tall young man shouted coldly. He jumped down from the city wall and strode toward the young man from the Dongyi tribe. It's Duanwu Yunfei. With him fighting, we'll most likely win. That's right. It is said that Duanwu Yunfei almost made it into the bronze list back then. His talent is very high. Now that he is 20 years old, he is already a first-layer martial grandmaster. The disciples of the Mystic Essence Sword sect were rather confident in Duanwu Yunfei. Duanwu Yun's flying speed is extremely fast. Not long after, she arrived in front of Ba He. Come down, let's fight. Duanwu Yunfei shouted coldly. Ba He smiled and jumped down from the tiger, facing Duanwu Yunfei. You go first. Otherwise, you won't have a chance. Ba He was very confident. How dare you be so arrogant in front of me? You're courting death. Duanwu Yunfei's killing intent flashed. He unsheathed his long sword and stabbed out 3 times in an instant. 3 sword radiances flashed at an astonishing speed. An ordinary martial master realm 9 martial artist would not be able to dodge them and would be killed in an instant. Duanwu Yunfei displayed the strength of a martial grand master. However, Ba He arched his body slightly like a fierce tiger. He took a step forward and his body was as fast as lightning, easily dodging Duanwu Yunfei's sword radiances. So powerful. He has definitely reached the martial grand master realm. The spectators on the city wall were shocked. It seems that although the Dongyi tribe has few people, they still have geniuses. Duanwu Yunfei's eyes flashed when his attack missed. He immediately activated his bloodline and displayed his strongest combat strength. Swoosh, swoosh. 9 consecutive swords, the sword chi continued to flow towards Ba He. It's over. Ba He's eyes flashed fiercely. A strong evil aura seeped out of his body like a ferocious beast. Swoosh. A snow-white ray of light flashed out like a bright moonlight. It was Ba He's blade radiance. However, it was unbelievably fast. Duanwu Yunfei did not even see it clearly before he felt a chill in his throat. Then, endless darkness enveloped him. 1 slash. He killed Duanwu Yunfei with 1 slash. How is that possible? On the city wall, the spectators were shocked when they saw Duanwu Yunfei's head flying high. When did he slash out? I didn't see it clearly. I didn't see it clearly either. It was too fast. I only saw a flash of light and Duanwu Yunfei was killed. This Ba he is too strong. The Dongi tribe has such a genius? The disciples of the Mystic Essence Sword sect discussed. In my opinion, the Dongi tribe came prepared this time. They have sent their top genius. Fu Liang frowned and said, "Damn it. If it weren't for the rule of being below 20 years old, I would have killed him." A young man in his 20s who was at the Martial Master Realm 3rd Realm said, "I'll kill him." At this moment, another young man walked out and jumped down the city wall. It's Lu Cheng. He has already reached the peak of the first layer of the Martial Grandmaster Realm. It is said that he has been bitterly cultivating a low-grade profound tier martial skill. I reckon he has already reached a certain level of maturity. I wonder if he will be able to fight against his opponent? If his lower black level martial technique reaches the second level, he should be able to fight. Lu Cheng quickly arrived in front of Ba He. "Make your move." Ba He still had that calm expression on his face. In his eyes, there was even a hint of disdain. Being looked down upon by a barbarian from the Dongi tribe, Lu Cheng's eyes flashed with killing intent. He unsheathed his sword and turned into a meteor, attacking Ba He. Meteor swordplay. There must be a second level or even more. There is hope. However, before the disciples of the Mystic Essence Sword sect could finish their words, they stopped abruptly. This was because Ba He had slashed out with his blade. With one slash, Lu Cheng's head fell to the ground. Lu Cheng was still killed by a single slash. The sound of people sucking in cold breaths could be heard. How is that possible? How can a mere Dongi tribe have such a strong genius? He killed Lu Cheng, who has cultivated a black-level martial technique and reached the peak of Martial Master Realm 1st Realm. How strong is he? What is his cultivation? Chapter 151. To have such a strong combat strength at the age of 19, he would be considered a top genius even in the Mystic Essence Sword sect. Furthermore, they had no idea how strong the other party was. They only felt that he was unfathomable. Fu Liang frowned. After a while, he said, "If I'm not wrong, he has reached the peak of Martial Master Realm." What? Peak of Martial Master Realm? At the scene, the sound of people sucking in cold air once again rang out. To reach the peak of Martial Master Realm at the age of 19, he was stronger than they had imagined. Such a cultivation was considered top in the Mystic Essence Sword sect. For example, Zhang Muyun and Duanmu Yunyang were around 18 years old when the grand competition of the 4 academies took place. This was because they had deliberately stayed behind to accumulate experience. Disregarding everything else, just Ba He's cultivation speed was already not much weaker than Zhang Muyun and the others. However, Zhang Muyun and the rest were the top geniuses of the Mystic Essence Sword sect. Damn it, the top geniuses of the Mystic Essence Sword sect did not come today. Otherwise, he wouldn't have the chance to be so arrogant. Yeah, the other party caught us off guard. Although some people looked at Lu Ming, they shook their heads. Lu Ming was still a martial master not long ago. Even if he had reached the Martial Master Realm, he would not be a match for the other party. Lu Ming's eyes flashed. Just as he was about to make a move, Ba He spoke. What? No one is going to make a move? The Mystic Essence Sword sect is only SS. How about this? I'll raise the age by 2 years. Anyone below 22 can come and fight with me. Ba He laughed with disdain. All right, 22 years old. You said it yourself. The young man who was over 20 years old shouted. He jumped down and rushed towards the other party. Ha, senior brother Lu Tian has made his move. The other party is dead for sure. He's too confident. He actually raised his own age by 2 years. Senior brother Lu Tian is exactly 22 years old, and his cultivation has already reached the 3rd layer of the Martial Grandmaster Realm. It's enough to suppress him. Furthermore, senior brother Lu Tian was someone who was on the bronze ranking back then. The other party is courting death. After killing 2 of our people, he's too arrogant. The disciples of the Mystic Essence Sword sect smiled. However, Lu Ming frowned. He didn't know why, but he felt that it wasn't that simple. Soon, Lu Tian arrived in front of Bach. A mere barbarian has killed 2 disciples of my Mystic Essence Sword sect. You deserve to die 1,000 times over. Now, let me send you on your way. Lu Tian's eyes were incomparably cold. Ba He smiled faintly and said disdainfully, the other two said the same thing, but they couldn't even block a single strike from me. Don't compare me to them. Lu Tian shouted coldly as his aura burst forth. The aura of a third-grade martial master formed a strong pressure that crushed towards the other party. However, Bach only smiled faintly with a hint of mockery on his lips. He was as calm as the wind, as if he was not under any pressure at all. Backwind 3 slashes. Lu Tian suddenly shouted and unsheathed his saber. A terrifying saber light soared into the sky, forming a saber that was dozens of meters long and slashed towards Bach. Good, the fourth stage of a low-grade profound martial skill. Fu Liang applauded and thought to himself, as expected of a genius of the mystic essence sword sect. He can cultivate a low-grade profound martial skill to the fourth stage when he's only a third-grade martial master. Ordinary martial artists might not be able to cultivate a low-grade profound martial skill at the third-grade martial master realm. Even he, who had cultivated a low-grade profound martial skill for dozens of years, was only at the fourth stage. Interesting. Bach smiled and unsheathed his saber again. Swoosh. The saber light broke through the air and slashed rapidly towards Lu Tian's head. This move is useless against me. Lu Tian roared and his true chi burst forth. Two sabers formed in front of him and slashed forward. Bam bam. The sabers formed by true chi were shattered, but Lu Tian had bought some time. The saber in his hand broke through the air and slashed towards the other party's head. Bach took a step back and retreated dozens of meters. Good. Senior brother Lu Tian is mighty. The Mystic Essence Sword Sect disciples shouted. Finally, a disciple of the Mystic Essence Sword Sect had the upper hand, so they were naturally excited. Looks like you have some ability, unlike those trash just now. Then, I'll be serious too. Bach suddenly laughed. Be serious. Arrogant. You're clearly at a disadvantage, but you still want to save face. I was too full of myself. Senior brother Lu Tian, kill him. Show these Eastern barbarians the power of our Mystic Essence Sword Sect. Kill him. The Mystic Essence Sword Sect disciples shouted. However, Lu Tian could not laugh. The moment Bach said that he was serious, he felt a powerful and eerie aura shrouding him. Being shrouded by this aura, Lu Tian felt his body turn cold. A chill rose from the bottom of his heart. To be able to force me to use my true strength, you can die with no regrets. Bach licked his lips and a bloody light flashed in his eyes. Then, a thick black true chi emerged from his body. Purgatory Saber Technique. Bach shouted and slashed out. At this moment, the wind and clouds gathered. The black true chi on his body gathered together with the saber light and vaguely formed an evil spirit. It was as if an evil spirit had slashed out with his saber. Lu Tian was shocked. He roared and activated his bloodline, displaying his strongest combat strength. Meteor Destruction. Swish. Swish. The two saber lights met in the air. With a loud sound, the saber light shot out. Bam. Then, a figure retreated quickly. It was Lu Tian. His face was pale and he coughed up blood. His eyes were filled with horror. After retreating, he turned around and ran. He did not dare to fight. It's too late to run. A cold voice sounded. A black saber light crossed the void and slashed at Lu Tian. Save me! Lu Tian shouted, but it was no use. Puchi! His head fell to the ground and blood splattered. Lu Tian, a third-stage martial master who was once on the bronze list, was killed by someone whose cultivation was lower than his. Moreover, it was from a small tribe like the Eastern barbarians. How is this possible? How is this possible? The Mystic Essence Sword Sect disciples could not accept this fact. How could the Eastern barbarians have such a powerful genius? This was not a simple battle. One had to know that Lu Tian was also a genius. He was not an ordinary third-stage martial master. However, he was killed by someone whose cultivation was higher. The opponent's cultivation technique is very special. It doesn't seem like the cultivation technique of the Eastern barbarians. Fu Liang suddenly said. You're saying that the opponent is not from the Eastern barbarians? A Mystic Essence Sword sect disciple asked. I don't know. Maybe the Eastern barbarians had a fortuitous encounter. Fu Liang said. Ha, what genius. You're all trash. Is there anyone else who wants to fight with me? Bok's body was filled with black true chi. His gaze was like lightning and his aura was like a rainbow. No one said anything. At first, I thought that the Mystic Essence Sword sect had some powerful geniuses. That's why they set an age limit. Now it seems that there's no need. The small emperor Lai Sun. No, the Mystic Essence Sword sect doesn't have any decent geniuses. Chapter 152. Lu Ming's expression changed. He had heard something from Ba He's words. Ba He had just said, small burning sun empire, but before he could finish, he changed the topic. This was strange. If he was from the Dongi tribe, he would not have said that. Could it be that Ba He was not from the Dongi tribe? He was not even from the Burning Sun Empire? But if he was not from the Burning Sun Empire, why would he go to the Dongi tribe? Lu Ming's thoughts were in a whirl. The people from the Mystic Essence Sword sect had ugly expressions on their faces. For a moment, no one dared to fight. There were a few fourth-grade martial master experts present, but they were all older than 22. If they fought, they would be a laughing stock. The soldiers on the city wall were also silent. In their eyes, the Mystic Essence Sword sect was a high and mighty martial arts holy land. But now, the geniuses of the Mystic Essence Sword sect were being suppressed by a young man from the Dongi tribe. This was a huge blow to their confidence, and their morale plummeted. Fu Liang's eyes were filled with anxiety. If this went on, it would not be good. Report. Suddenly, a soldier hurried in to report. What's the matter? Fu Liang asked. Governor, there's a major discovery. The Dongi tribe has sent a group of people 1,000 miles south of Dongke City. They are rushing towards Mount Jiuyao. The soldier reported. What? Is the Dongi tribe here an illusion? They are sending a surprise army to attack other big cities? Fu Liang was shocked. He quickly asked, how many people did the Dongi tribe send? Not many. Only a few hundred. The soldier replied. A few hundred? Fu Liang was stunned. What was the use of a few hundred? Governor, it is said that these hundreds of people are all experts. The weakest one is an advanced martial master. What? Fu Liang was shocked. He frowned. The disciples of the Mystic Essence Sword sect were also puzzled. The Dongi tribe must have a motive. We must stop them. A disciple of the Mystic Essence Sword sect said. That's right. But they are all experts. There are probably many martial masters. If we want to stop them, we will have to rely on you. Fu Liang cupped his fists. No problem. The Mystic Essence Sword sect disciple nodded. It's just that we have to get rid of that young man. Otherwise, it'll be a huge blow to our morale. If the other party launches an all-out attack, we'll be at a disadvantage. Fu Liang sighed. The members of the Mystic Essence Sword sect frowned again. The other party is intentionally stalling for time. Something big is definitely happening over there. We have to hurry over as soon as possible. Someone said, I'll go. Suddenly, a voice sounded. Everyone couldn't help but forget about it. Lu Ming. Everyone was stunned. Lu Ming? He was going to make a move? Could it be that he really broke through to the martial grandmaster realm? Even if he broke through to the martial grandmaster realm, it would still be impossible for him to be a match for him. He is at the peak of the second layer of the martial grandmaster realm. Furthermore, it is clear that he is also an absolute genius. Maybe there is hope. A few days ago, I saw Lu Ming send Du Feng flying with one punch. Let him try. When the disciples of the Mystic Essence Sword sect saw that it was Lu Ming who spoke, they couldn't help but whisper amongst themselves. Lu Ming ignored him and stepped forward. Senior brother Lu Ming, be careful. Pang Shi shouted from behind. Lu Ming smiled faintly and leaped down from the city wall. Among the disciples of the Mystic Essence Sword sect, there was a pair of resentful eyes staring at Lu Ming. It was Du Feng. That day, he was injured by a punch and became a laughing stock. He was humiliated and hated Lu Ming to the core. Just a moment ago, he was still being mocked by others. At this moment, he was roaring in his heart. Lu Ming, go to hell. You think you are a genius? Do you think you are better than Lu Tian? It's good that you are dead. Beside him, the triangular-eyed youth also had a resentful look on his face. The few of them tried their best to squeeze forward, wanting to see Lu Ming being killed by Ba He with their own eyes. Lu Ming was as light as a swallow and arrived in front of Ba He in no time. Haha, after beating up the older one, a younger one came. Kid, since you are here, my saber will not show you any mercy. Seeing Lu Ming's age, Ba He was stunned for a moment before a mocking look appeared on his face. You are not from the Burning Sun Empire, are you? Lu Ming did not answer the question, but Ba He's face changed. Speak, what are you doing here? Also, what is the purpose of the Dongyi tribe heading to Mount Juyao? Lu Ming continued to ask. Ba He's face changed a few times before he sneered, you don't have to care about that. Anyway, it is useless for you to know because you are going to die soon. Then why aren't you attacking? I know that you are trying to stall for time and delay us, but I don't have that much time to waste with you. After Lu Ming finished speaking, the storage ring on his finger lit up and the fire-tongue spear appeared in his hand. His aura also exploded. First-level martial master? A first-level martial master dares to come and die? How naive. At the sight of Lu Ming's cultivation level, Bach laughed maniacally. He almost burst into tears. On the city wall, Fu Liang kept shaking his head. Previously, when he saw Lu Ming's age, he felt that something was amiss. He was too young. Now that he saw Lu Ming's cultivation, he was a first-level martial master. Although it was shocking to have such cultivation at his age, he was still a first-level martial master. How could he be a match for Bach? Young hero, come back quickly. We will think of another way. Fu Liang shouted. Lu Ming was so young and had such a cultivation. In the Mystic Essence Sword sect, he was definitely a top genius. If he died here, Fu Liang was afraid that the Mystic Essence Sword sect would blame him. Mayor Fu, don't worry. Our junior Lu Ming is powerful and a peerless genius. Who knows, he might be able to kill Ba He. Du Feng said with a strange smile. However, everyone could hear the gloating and mockery in his words. Since you are here, how can you leave? Ba He unsheathed his saber and a cold killing intent appeared on his body, enveloping Lu Ming. Nonsense! Lu Ming scolded. He couldn't be bothered to say more and swept out his spear. I will kill you with one slash. Ba He's voice was cold. The saber light was even colder as it slashed towards Lu Ming's head. It was as fast as lightning. Poof! The saber accurately landed on Lu Ming's neck. However, at that moment, Ba He was shocked because it was only an afterimage. Not good. He let out a low roar and black chi burst out from his body. He stomped his feet and rushed forward without hesitation. Shio! A ray of spear aura pierced past his ear. The cold spear aura left a bloody scar on his face. Shwa! Shwa! Ba He ran forward for dozens of meters before he dared to stop. He suddenly turned around and slashed at the air, but it hit nothing. Lu Ming stood dozens of meters away and looked at him with a smile. Hey, why are you slashing at the air? Lu Ming laughed. Ba He's face flushed red and his eyes were filled with cold killing intent. Your movement technique is not bad, but do you think you can defeat me with that? Dream on. Chapter 153. Purgatory Saber Technique, Kill. Ba He roared. The saber aura pierced through the air and charged towards Lu Ming. Boom! Lu Ming's body emitted a scorching and explosive aura. Fire force. Once the fire force was released, it instantly crushed Ba He's cold killing intent. Force. Ba He's pupils constricted as shock flashed across his eyes. He never expected that Lu Ming could comprehend force at such a young age. So what if he comprehended force? He's only a first-stage martial master. Even if he comprehended force, he won't be my match. Ba He's eyes flashed with ruthlessness. He was also a genius and could even kill a third-stage martial master. His combat strength was infinitely close to the 4th stage martial master. He didn't believe that he wouldn't be a match for a 1st stage martial master. His saber slashed out even more fiercely. This is a good opportunity to test my current combat strength. Landslide. Lu Ming took a step forward and swept his long spear from bottom to top. Clang. The saber and spear clashed, causing a deafening roar. A terrifying force surged and swept in all directions. One could see that the ground beneath Lu Ming and Ba He's feet exploded, creating a 10-meter wide and 2-meter deep crater. Boom. Then, a figure quickly retreated. It was Ba He. He staggered back more than 20 meters, his face filled with shock. One move. With just one move, he could feel that the vital energy in Lu Ming's body was like a violent storm. It was continuous, indestructible, and extremely condensed. What he cultivated was a black-level superior grade technique. His vital energy was rich and condensed, far surpassing the vital energy cultivated by yellow-level techniques. However, compared to Lu Ming's vital energy, it was trash. It was completely crushed. How can he be so strong? This strength is already comparable to a 4th stage martial master. Ba He roared in his heart. There was a small gap between the 3rd stage martial master and the 4th stage martial master, and the gap was huge. Ba He was shocked, and the people on the city wall were even more shocked. Their mouths were so wide open that a duck egg could be stuffed in. This young hero Lu Ming? Was he really only 16 years old? Is he really only at the 1st level of the martial grandmaster realm? Shock was written all over Fu Liang's determined old face. He had experienced countless life and death battles in his life, but he had never been so shocked. City Lord Fu, speaking of which, our junior brother Lu Ming is a legendary figure in the Mystic Essence Sword sect. He entered the sect last year, and in his first year he rushed to the top of the bronze list. An older disciple of the Vermilion Bird Courtyard explained, his face faintly revealing a proud expression. You joined last year? First place on the bronze list in his first year? Fu Liang repeated and was even more shocked. On the side, Du Feng and the triangular-eyed young man's eyes almost popped out of their sockets. They stared at the city wall, thinking that their eyes were playing tricks on them. Haha. Pang Shi grinned. What are you waiting for? Let's continue. Lu Ming smiled faintly and dashed toward Ba He. Purgatory Saber Technique, Human Purgatory. Ba He roared in rage and erupted with all his strength. His bloodline, his potential, everything erupted as he rushed towards Lu Ming. Broken armor. The long spear stabbed out like lightning. Clang. Bak retreated again. Boom. Boom. Next, the two exchanged more than 10 moves, leaving more than 10 large pits on the ground. Bak was completely at a disadvantage. His face was pale and his body was trembling. Blood flowed from the corner of his mouth. It's time to end this. Lu Ming whispered. He had a rough idea of his current combat strength. Without activating his bloodline, he could probably fight with an ordinary 4th grade martial grandmaster. If he activated his bloodline, it should not be a problem for him to kill them. In the martial grandmaster realm, it was absolutely shocking to be able to kill an opponent who was 3 grades higher than him. Boom. With a flash of blood, Lu Ming's bloodline was activated and his strength increased greatly. Swoosh. The long spear turned into a ray of light and was much faster than before. Puchi. The long spear directly pierced through Bak's heart. The small blazing sun empire, Bak's eyes widened unwillingly, and then he stopped breathing. Puchi. Pulling out the long spear, the body shook and blood splattered. There was not a single drop of blood on the tip of the spear. The devouring power appeared in his palm and devoured Bak's blood essence. Then he started to refine it. As he refined it, he looked at the Dongyi army. He pointed his spear at the Eastern barbarian army and shouted, "Who among you wants to fight?" Mighty, mighty. On the city wall, tens of thousands of soldiers roared and their voices shook the sky. In the distance, the Dongyi army panicked. They turned around and retreated. After the Dongyi army retreated, Lu Ming returned to the city wall. Ha! Young hero Lu Ming is a peerless genius. I have never seen someone like you before. Fu Liang exclaimed. Thank you for your compliment. I was just lucky, Lu Ming said modestly. Then, he said, let's organize our men and rush to Mount Jiuyao. That's right. Young heroes, who wants to go? There are a few sky eagles in the camp that can carry you there quickly. Fu Liang asked. This time, those above the Martial Grandmaster realm will go. Those below the Martial Grandmaster realm will stay here to guard. A 4th-level Martial Grandmaster expert said. Everyone nodded and had no objections. Soon, 5 huge sky eagles took off from Dongke City and flew towards Mount Jiuyao. Most of the 100 or so Martial Grandmaster disciples of the Mystic Essence Sword sect had gone. Lu Ming was among them. There were 5 4th-layer Martial Grandmaster experts gathered on the largest sky eagle in the middle. They were all 4th-level Martial Master experts from the Mystic Essence Sword sect who had come this time. Among them, there were 2 from the White Tiger Hall and 1 from each of the other 3 halls. Of course, Lu Ming was among them. After this battle, they had already regarded Lu Ming as a 4th-level Martial Grandmaster. 5 4th-level Martial Grandmasters and Lu Ming gathered together to discuss. Everyone, I suggest that we put aside the grudges between the 4 halls for the time being. What do you think? Chen Quan, a 25-year-old 4th-level Martial Grandmaster from the Vermilion Bird Hall, suggested. I have no objections. Me neither. The 2 4th-level Martial Grandmasters from the Azure Dragon Hall and the Black Tortoise Hall nodded. The 2 4th-level Martial Master experts from the White Tiger Hall glanced at Lu Ming and exchanged glances. Subsequently, they nodded and said, We have no objections. Me neither. Lu Ming nodded with a smile. He didn't care. If the White Tiger Hall wanted to target him, he didn't mind teaching them a painful lesson. That's good. This time, the Dongi tribe and other people are involved in this matter. In my opinion, there must be something fishy about Mount Jiuyao. No matter what, we must stop them. The Dongi tribe has limited experts. With our strength, it should be enough. Chen Quan analyzed. Everyone nodded. Chapter 154. Soon Mount Jiuyao came into view. Mount Jiuyao was more than 3,000 meters tall and covered with strange rocks. Among them, there were 9 huge rocks, each of which was 50 to 60 meters tall. They were shaped like demonic beasts, hence the name Mount Jiuyao. At this moment, more than 200 people were gathered under a tiger-shaped rock. There were men and women, most of whom were middle-aged men and women. The men were topless and the women were wrapped in animal skins. They were obviously from the Dongi tribe. At this moment, a few Dongi elders surrounded the tiger-shaped rock and smeared blood on it. It's the Dongi tribe. They're carving inscriptions. Chen Quan shouted. Go down and stop them. The Gale Eagles screeched and rushed toward the Dongi tribe. It's the disciples of the Mystic Essence Sword sect. Kill them. We can't let them ruin our plan to open the ancestral ruins. Kill them. The Dongi tribe used to rule the Blazing Sun Empire. As long as we get the treasures in the ancestral ruins, we'll rise again and rule the Blazing Sun Empire. Roars rang out one after another, accompanied by incomparably sharp arrows. Swoosh, swoosh. Hundreds of arrows streaked across the sky and shot toward the 5 Gale Eagles. Stop them. The disciples of the Mystic Essence Sword sect sent out sword chi, saber chi, and fist energy to block the arrows. However, these arrows were shot by martial arts experts, and most of them were shot by martial grandmasters. They were imbued with powerful true chi. Although the Dongi tribe disciples tried their best to block them, many of the arrows still penetrated their defenses. Puff! Puff! Many of the arrows hit the Gale Eagles. Oh no! The disciples of the Mystic Essence Sword sect were shocked. They had no choice but to jump off the Gale Eagles and use body lightning technique to descend. However, this made them easy targets for the Dongi tribe. Kill! The Eastern barbarians roared, and another wave of arrows shot toward them. The Mystic Essence Sword sect disciples roared and tried their best to block the arrows. However, they were in the air and could only use their true chi to block the arrows. Ah! Ah! Miserable cries rang out as 5 or 6 disciples with weaker cultivations had their bodies pierced by arrows. Their hearts and other parts of their bodies fell to the ground. Whoosh, whoosh. At this time, Lu Ming's high air steps displayed a mysterious power. When he stepped on the air, it was as if he was stepping on solid objects. A wave of energy was generated, and Lu Ming's figure floated, dodging several arrows. However, he had only cultivated to the 3rd level and could not last for long. But it was enough. With a few leaps, Lu Ming charged toward the Dongi tribe. Whoosh, whoosh. Another wave of arrows shot over like shooting stars, incomparably fast. The arrows pierced through the air, bringing with them sharp and terrifying whistling sounds. Moon seizing. Lu Ming swept out with his spear, sweeping away the dozens of arrows in front of him. What a powerful force! Lu Ming felt his wrist go numb. A few more screams came from the sky. More people from the Mystic Essence Sword sect were hit by arrows. At this point, however, they were already close to the Eastern barbarians. Kill! Kill these Eastern barbarians! The disciples of the Mystic Essence Sword sect shouted angrily, launching powerful attacks downward. The Eastern barbarians put away their bows and unsheathed their swords, slashing out a pale white blade light. Boom! Boom! A series of explosions rang out. The disciples of the Mystic Essence Sword sect borrowed the force of their attacks to reduce the force of their fall. They landed on the ground and engaged in a fierce battle with the Eastern barbarians. It had to be said that the Eastern barbarians had sent many experts this time. At least 100 of them were martial grandmasters. The rest were high-level martial grandmasters. However, the disciples of the Mystic Essence Sword sect were, after all, disciples of a large sect. Their combat strength was higher than that of ordinary people. For a moment, the battle was difficult to determine who would win. Hold on. The ancestral ruins is about to open. An elder of the Eastern barbarians shouted. The battle between the two sides was extremely fierce. There were 6 or 7 4th-level martial grandmasters among the Eastern barbarians. Chen Quan and the others were completely entangled. Clang! Lu Ming swept out with his spear. 3 of the Eastern barbarians above the 7th level of martial grandmaster were sent flying. Their bones were broken, and they were no longer breathing. Little bastard, you're courting death. A 50-year-old Eastern barbarian slashed at Lu Ming with his saber. Landslide. Lu Ming swept out with his spear and exchanged a blow with his opponent. The two of them were pushed back by the force of the collision. 4th-level martial grandmaster. Lu Ming's eyes flickered. His opponent was even more shocked. He saw that Lu Ming was only a 1st-level martial grandmaster. He thought that he would be able to finish him off with one blow. He didn't expect that they would be evenly matched. A genius. A peerless genius of the Mystic Essence Sword sect. Killing such a genius is enough to make the Mystic Essence Sword sect's heart ache. The man licked his lips. His eyes flashed with violence. Chi-chi, the Eastern barbarian slashed out a dozen times. The pale white saber light enveloped Lu Ming's vital points. Fire dance. With a flick of his spear, flowers of flame appeared, beautiful and dangerous. Bang, bang. A series of rapid explosions sounded. The flowers of fire dissipated and the saber light was defeated. Chasing lightning. Without any hesitation, Lu Ming's spear pierced toward his opponent's throat like lightning. The other party's saber actually started to spin in his hands, transforming into a snow-white full moon formed by saber gleams. Lu Ming's long spear pierced over but was deflected with a clang. Beast Hunter's 18 slashes. The burly man from the Dongi tribe charged toward Lu Ming again. Lu Ming also attacked with his spear. In the blink of an eye, the two exchanged dozens of blows. Gradually, Lu Ming gained the upper hand. Lu Ming had the power of fire. Coupled with the astral fire spear art, his attacks were like a volcanic eruption. Coupled with his extremely condensed vital energy, he was extremely violent. The other party was only an early-stage 4th-grade martial master and was gradually losing. Buzz. At this moment, the tiger-shaped stone suddenly emitted a bright light. Ha! The ancestral ruins are open. An elder from the Eastern barbarian tribe laughed. The tiger-shaped stone shone brightly. Slowly, it condensed into a 10-meter-tall and 3-meter-wide light gate. Kill them all. We'll go to the ruins. The elders from the eastern barbarian tribe who had been smearing the blood of the demonic beasts on their bodies roared. Each of them released a powerful aura and charged toward the Mystic Essence Sword Sect disciples. Of the 5 people, 2 of them actually had the cultivation of the 5th level of the Martial Master Realm. The other 3 also had the cultivation of the 4th level of the Martial Master Realm. Once they joined the battle, the Mystic Essence Sword Sect disciples were at a disadvantage. In a few breaths' time, 5 or 6 of their disciples were killed. Charge! Charge toward that light! Lu Ming suddenly shouted. Since they couldn't win, they might as well charge toward the treasure. Perhaps they could turn the tables. Yes, charge! The Mystic Essence Sword Sect disciples roared and charged toward the light gate. Damn it! Stop them! As expected, the Eastern barbarians panicked. They roared and tried their best to stop the Mystic Essence Sword Sect disciples. Chapter 155. Hold it right there. The Dongi tribe man roared and chased after Lu Ming. I'll send you on your way. Lu Ming, who was sprinting ahead, suddenly stopped and thrust his spear at the Dongi tribe man. This was extremely sudden. The Dongi tribe man thought that Lu Ming was going to rush to the light door with all his might, but he did not expect to see him coming back. In a hurry, the Dongi tribe man slashed out with his saber to block the attack. Explode! Lu Ming whispered in a cold voice. His sprinting was fake. His real intention was to accumulate power. Boom! Violent energy exploded from the tip of the spear and blasted towards the Dongi tribe man. In a hurry, the Dongi tribe man could not block it at all. He spat out a mouthful of blood and was thrown back. Chasing lightning. Lu Ming cast Chasing Thunder. Coupled with the high air steps, he was even faster. The spear pierced through the Dongi tribe man's throat. Devour! Lu Ming controlled his bloodline and devoured the Dongi tribe man's blood essence in an instant. The Dongi tribe man was a 4th-grade martial master. The essence of his blood essence was extremely rich and was constantly being refined by the devouring spirit bloodline to replenish the true qi he had used to execute Explode. Lu Ming did not stop and ran towards the light door. At this time, many Mystic Essence Sword Sect disciples had already rushed in. Stop him! A few martial master 1st-grade and 2nd-grade martial masters wanted to stop him, but Lu Ming's spear swept out and they coughed out blood and flew back. In a few breaths, Lu Ming was close to the light door. Lu Ming, save me! Suddenly, a cry for help came from behind. Lu Ming turned around and saw that it was Du Feng. He was surrounded by a few experts from the Dongi tribe. You should deal with it yourself. Lu Ming smiled as he turned around and walked towards the light door. Behind him, Du Feng's roar of despair could be heard. The moment he stepped through the door, the world spun around him. When he recovered, Lu Ming found himself standing on a piece of gravel. Behind him was a stone wall, and on the stone wall, there was another door of light, exactly the same as the previous door. The only difference was that the surroundings had changed. Kill! A blade light rushed towards Lu Ming, but Lu Ming brandished his long spear and blocked the blade light. All around, there were still shouts of killing. The disciples of the Mystic Essence Sword Sect rushed in, but so did the experts of the Dongi tribe. Charge forward, we'll charge towards the forest in front of us. As long as we get into the forest, we won't be afraid of them. A disciple of the Mystic Essence Sword Sect who was in the 4th layer of the Martial Grandmaster realm shouted. Let's go, we'll bring up the rear. Chen Quan shouted. You want to leave? All of you, stay here. The 2 5th-level martial grandmasters of the Dongi tribe attacked with all their might. The 5 4th-level martial grandmasters of the Mystic Essence Sword Sect resisted with all their might, buying time for the others. Although the competition between the 4 great schools was fierce, and it was normal for them to fight each other, they were all disciples of the Mystic Essence Sword Sect. At this moment of life and death, they knew that only by working together would they have a chance to survive. If they fought separately, only death would await them. Rumble! The true qi in Lu Ming's body was surging. The blood essence of the 4th-level martial grandmaster was constantly being refined, turning into turbulent energy that poured into Lu Ming's body. It was constantly being converted into true qi by Lu Ming. The true qi that Lu Ming had used to explode just now was recovered in a few breaths. The remaining majestic energy was helping Lu Ming to break through to the next realm. Lu Ming fought while breaking through to the next realm. Bang! A 2nd-level martial grandmaster of the Dongyi tribe was shaken by Lu Ming to the point that he coughed up blood and almost exploded. At the same time, Lu Ming's body trembled and his cultivation broke through to the mid-stage of the 1st-level martial grandmaster. The blood essence of a 4th-level martial grandmaster was too thick. It was at least equal to the blood essence of 70 or 80 1st-level martial grandmasters. Lu Ming's cultivation was still rapidly increasing. Boom! Boom! Lu Ming brandished his long spear and dashed toward Chen Quan and the rest at full speed. "Little bastard, I'll kill you!" An elder from the Dongyi tribe charged toward Lu Ming. He was also a 4th-level martial master. Boom! However, he was forced to retreat after exchanging a blow with Lu Ming. So strong? The Dongyi tribe elder was shocked. Explode! Since he had a lot of true qi in his body, Lu Ming was not afraid of wasting it. He used another explode. With the breakthrough in his cultivation, this move was even more powerful. One of the Dongyi tribe elders' arms was blown off and he almost died. He wanted to retreat in fear, but Lu Ming was faster. He stabbed him with his spear and at the same time, controlled his bloodline and devoured his blood essence. Kill him first. A 5th-level martial grandmaster of the Dongyi tribe was furious and rushed toward Lu Ming. However, Lu Ming used the high steps and did not want to be entangled with him. In a few flashes, he dashed to the side of Chen Quan and the rest. Landslide. Lu Ming jumped high and smashed his long spear toward another 5th-level martial grandmaster of the Dongyi tribe. Boom! There was an earth-shattering explosion and Lu Ming's body drifted backward from the impact. After being blocked by Lu Ming, Chen Quan and the others finally escaped and ran toward the forest. Similarly, Lu Ming did not continue fighting. He ran toward the forest. Chase, chase! The Dongyi tribe roared. More than 100 people continued to chase after Lu Ming and the others. In just 5 minutes, Lu Ming and the others arrived at the forest. In the forest, ancient trees towered into the sky and old vines curled around. It was a scene of a primitive forest. The other disciples of the Mystic Essence Sword sect had already rushed in. Lu Ming and the others did not hesitate and rushed in as well. Running in the dense forest made it easy for them to hide. At the same time, the other party could not form an encirclement very well. Damn it! The Dongyi tribe stopped in front of the forest and did not continue the chase. The battle strength of the Mystic Essence Sword sect's disciples was extremely shocking. They had a lot of methods. Just now, the 2 5th-level martial master experts had joined forces, along with a few 4th-level martial master experts, but they were unable to kill the 5 4th-level martial master youths. They only managed to injure a few of them. In the end, a 4th-level martial grandmaster was killed by a 1st-level martial grandmaster. This made them extremely frightened. It could be said that the Mystic Essence Sword sect's strength was not much weaker than theirs. If they rushed into the forest, they would probably be ambushed. Let's ignore them for now. Let's find the treasure left behind by our ancestors and quickly leave this place. Once we hide in the depths of the coastal mountains, the Mystic Essence Sword sect will not be able to do anything to us. A 5th-level martial grandmaster elder suggested. Okay, let's do that. After the discussion, they left and headed deeper into the mountains. In the forest, Lu Ming and the others ran quickly. After running for about 10 miles, they stopped. It seems that the Dongyi tribe did not chase after us. Chen Quan exhaled. His face was a little pale. Obviously, he had been injured in the battle just now. The others were not in a good state either. They had more or less suffered some injuries. After all, the other party had 2 5th-level martial grandmasters. It was already good that they could hold them back for a short period of time. At this time, the surrounding Mystic Essence Sword sect disciples slowly gathered. In the end, they found that there were only 61 people left. When they came, there were 102 people. Chapter 156. They had lost 41 people in this battle. These were all silver-ranked disciples, martial grandmasters. Even for a large sect like the Mystic Essence Sword sect, losing 41 martial grandmasters was a great loss. None of them spoke a word. After waiting for a dozen or so minutes, Chen Quan and the others relaxed when they saw that the Dongyi tribe hadn't chased after them. They each found a place to recuperate. Lu Ming also flew up to a big tree. He circulated the true dragon fighting art and began to refine the blood essence that he had just devoured. He had devoured the essence blood of 2 4th-level martial grandmasters. The essence blood of 2 4th-level martial grandmasters contained an unimaginable amount of energy. It was equivalent to the essence blood of 151st-level martial grandmasters. Such a large amount of essence blood could not be refined in a short time. The spirit-devouring bloodline seemed to be breathing. Every time it exhaled, a large amount of energy would enter Lu Ming's body. Lu Ming's cultivation increased rapidly. Peak of the mid-stage of the 1st-level martial grandmaster, late stage of the 1st-level martial grandmaster. After 2 hours, Lu Ming had refined all the essence blood and turned it into his true qi. Lu Ming's cultivation had reached the peak of the 1st-level martial grandmaster. Lu Ming smiled bitterly. This was equivalent to the essence blood of 151st-level martial grandmasters. In other words, the essence blood of 151st-level martial grandmasters was not enough for him to break through to the next level. It was only enough for him to reach the peak of the 1st-level martial grandmaster. The 3rd level of the true dragon art required too much energy to raise one's cultivation. It was dozens of times more than an ordinary person. He did not know how much energy he would need to raise his cultivation to the 4th, 5th, or even the 8th or 9th level. Thinking of this, Lu Ming could only smile bitterly. He shook his head and cast these thoughts aside. It was useless to think so far ahead. Lu Ming stopped and jumped down from the tree. Junior brother Lu Ming. Chen Quan saw Lu Ming and called out. His complexion was better than before. It was obvious that he had recovered a lot after healing. Beside him were 4th-level martial grandmasters from the other 3 academies. The few of them gathered together and seemed to be discussing something. Lu Ming walked over. What is this place? Just now, I heard the Dongyi people shouting something about ancestral ruins. The 4th-level martial master of the Black Tortoise Academy, named Sun Rua, said with a frown. I once read about it in an ancient book. Legend has it that a long time ago, at least 10,000 years ago, the Burning Sun Empire was ruled by the Eastern barbarians. Chen Quan pondered for a moment and said, What? The Burning Sun Empire was once ruled by the Eastern barbarians. The rest of the group was shocked. The Eastern barbarians were just a small tribe in the mountains near the sea. They only had a population of a few million. How could they possibly rule over the vast territory of the Burning Sun Empire? Chen Quan thought for a moment and said, That is indeed what is recorded in the records. It is said that the Eastern barbarians were very powerful in the past. They ruled not only the Burning Sun Empire, but also a few empires near the Burning Sun Empire. They were extremely powerful. The few of them were extremely shocked. It was obvious that this was the first time they had heard of such a story. Unfortunately, in the end, they still fell apart. After tens of thousands of years, the Dongyi tribe has completely declined and become a small tribe. Chen Quan sighed. No matter how powerful a force was, it could not withstand the erosion of time. It was only a matter of time before it declined. In that case, this should be the ruins left behind by the Dongyi tribe. The eyes of a young man from the White Tiger Hall suddenly lit up. The others did the same. This place was filled with mountains and forests and was full of vitality. It was very likely that this was a small realm. It was not difficult to guess that this was probably left behind by the experts of the Dongyi tribe. Since the Dongyi tribe was so powerful in the past, what kind of treasures would they leave behind in this small realm? Fortuitous encounter, fortuitous encounter. The few of them roared in their hearts. At the same time, their eyes lit up. Junior brothers, since the Dongyi tribe is not chasing after us, There is no danger for the time being. I think we should split up. A young man from the White Tiger Hall suggested. I agree. The young experts from the Azure Dragon Hall agreed. If they moved together, how would they split the treasures and opportunities that they encountered? Naturally, everyone began to make plans. All right, then it's decided. In the end, they made up their minds to split up and search for their own opportunities. Very quickly, the disciples of the 4 great academies split into 2s and 3s, each of them choosing a direction and disappearing into the mountain forest. Junior brother Lu Ming, do you want to move together? Chen Quan looked at Lu Ming. Lu Ming shook his head and said with a smile, No, I'd better go by myself. Then, junior brother Lu, take care. Chen Quan cupped his fists and left with the others. Soon, Lu Ming was the only one left. Lu Ming pondered for a while. Then, he moved and headed out of the forest. Soon he was out of the forest. He looked at the footprints on the ground and chased after the Dongi tribe. Since this was a ruin left behind by the ancestors of the Dongi tribe must know a lot about it. Instead of searching around like a headless fly, it would be better to follow the Dongi tribe and rob them along the way. Wouldn't that be better? Lu Ming used the airborne steps and moved like a gust of wind. He was extremely fast. A plane was actually a world. However, the laws of heaven and earth in this world were not complete and had all kinds of flaws. Moreover, it was not very big. That was why it was called a plane. According to its size, a plane was divided into small, medium, and large planes. Now, this plane was only a small plane. However, it was small compared to the divine wilderness continent. In fact, this plane was no less than a few thousand miles wide. Lu Ming ran for over 1,000 miles before he finally heard some movement. There was the sound of a great battle ahead. Lu Ming did not stop and headed in the direction of the sound. Soon, a dilapidated palace appeared in front of Lu Ming. It was obvious that the palace was very large and occupied a large area. However, it had been there for too long and was very dilapidated. Many places had collapsed. At this moment, there was an intense battle at the entrance of the palace. More than a dozen Dongi tribe members were fighting 8 monsters. Lu Ming could tell at a glance that the Dongi tribe members were all martial grandmasters. Among them, there were 2 4th-grade martial grandmasters and 4 3rd-grade martial grandmasters. However, even with so many experts, they only had a slight advantage over the 8 monsters. This was because the 8 monsters were very abnormal. The 8 monsters had shed their hair, revealing their skinny muscles that seemed to be filled with a metallic luster. Every monster's eyes were bloodshot, and they roared in a low voice. They didn't care about their own lives as they pounced on the Dongi experts. Chapter 157. These are demonic corpse puppets, refined by our ancestors. They are fearless and only know how to attack. Their bodies are as hard as steel and invulnerable. Their only weakness is their eyes. Attack their eyes. An elder of the Dongi tribe shouted. Kill! Kill! Led by 2 4th-grade martial grandmasters, more than a dozen Dongi experts attacked the eyes of the 8 demonic corpse puppets with all their might. Soon, the eyes of one of the demonic beasts were shattered. It roared and fell to the ground. After finding a way, the Dongi experts worked together and defeated the 8 demonic beasts one by one. Let's go in. If I'm not wrong, this must be a very important place. An old man from the Dongi tribe shouted excitedly. More than a dozen Dongi tribesmen rushed inside excitedly. After the Dongi experts left, Lu Ming appeared and followed them into the palace. Lu Ming's footsteps landed silently. He followed the Dongi experts a dozen meters behind, holding his breath. The Dongi experts did not notice him at all. After passing through many courtyards, they arrived at a large hall in the middle. From afar, they could see the door of the hall open, revealing the bookshelves in the hall. This is the library. There must be secret manuals here. This is great. There is hope for the revival of the Dongi tribe. An old man from the Dongi tribe shouted excitedly. The Dongi experts were so excited that they were about to rush into the hall. Two huge demonic beasts rushed out of the hall, emitting a murderous aura. They were as fast as lightning. Two cries of agony rang out as the two Dongi men were torn in half by the two demonic beasts. Blood and organs splattered everywhere. More demonic corpse puppets. Be careful! With a roar, two fourth-grade martial grandmasters pounced on the two demonic beasts. The two demonic beasts were hairless, but their muscles were as hard as metal. Die, evil beasts! The two elders roared and slashed at the eyes of the two demonic beasts with their swords. However, these two demonic corpse puppets were obviously stronger than the previous ones. They reached out their claws and blocked the swords. The demonic corpse puppets roared and charged at the Dongi experts with a murderous aura. They were not afraid of death. Bang! Bang! Several of the Dongi tribe's first realm and second realm martial grandmasters were sent flying by the demonic beasts. Only those who were third realm martial grandmasters and above could fight head-on. For a time, the Dongi tribe and the two demonic beasts were locked in a fierce battle. At that instant, a figure silently passed by the crowd like a gust of wind and charged into the hall. Damn it! Stop right there! A fourth-level martial master elder roared as a sharp saber light slashed towards the figure. This figure was, of course, Lu Ming. Of course, he would not let go of such an opportunity. Clang! The long spear swept out and blocked the old man's saber. Lu Ming borrowed the momentum and rushed into the hall even faster. You guys have fun, I'll be leaving first. Lu Ming laughed loudly and leaped into the main hall. The Dongi tribe roared angrily. You guys rush in and kill that little bastard. We'll block these two demonic corpse devil puppets. Two fourth-level martial grandmasters roared as they activated their bloodline and blocked the two demonic corpse devil puppets with all their strength. The others took the opportunity to rush into the hall. Little bastard, go to hell! A third-level martial grandmaster roared as his killing intent surged. His saber carried a rolling saber light and swept towards Lu Ming. However, what greeted him was a lightning-like spear light. Poochie! Blood splattered everywhere as Lu Ming's spear pierced through the man's heart. A third-level martial grandmaster was easily killed by Lu Ming. Then, the long spear swept out and the two second-level martial grandmasters were sent flying. They were no longer breathing. In the blink of an eye, 3 experts had been killed. Retreat! The others turned pale with fright and hurriedly retreated. Let's kill these two demonic beasts together and then kill that little bastard. He can't escape. A 4th-level martial grandmaster elder roared. The Dongi tribe fought against the two demonic beasts with all their strength. In the hall, Lu Ming's eyes lit up as he looked around. There were more than 10 bookshelves in the hall. Lu Ming glanced at them and revealed a disappointed expression. Most of the bookshelves were empty. How could there be any secret manuals? They were probably taken away by the Dongi tribe back then. Hey, there's a box over there. Lu Ming saw a black box in an inconspicuous corner of the hall. Lu Ming's eyes lit up as he hurriedly walked over. The box was made of some unknown metal. It was black and rusty. Lu Ming's true chi surged out and the box opened. Immediately, stacks of books appeared in front of Lu Ming. There were more than 10 of them. Lu Ming's eyes lit up as he quickly picked up a book. These secret manuals were obviously not made of ordinary paper. They were made of an unknown material that was extremely tough. After so many years, they were still intact. He opened it and saw that it was a sword technique. Tiger Roar Sword Technique, Superior Yellow Level Martial Technique. The words inside were revealed. It's only a superior yellow level martial technique. Lu Ming was slightly disappointed as he flipped through the others' secret manuals. Most of these secret manuals were yellow-level martial techniques. There were a total of 32 books. Among them, there were 20 inferior yellow-level martial techniques and 10 superior yellow-level martial techniques. There were only 2 inferior black-level martial techniques, and they were both saber techniques. Lu Ming could not use them at all. Lu Ming was greatly disappointed. No wonder they were placed in a box in a corner and were not taken away. They must have been thrown here like trash. Lu Ming shook his head with a bitter smile. Am I being too greedy? These secret manuals, although of low level, can be sold for at least tens of millions of silver taels. Lu Ming's eyes lit up as he thought about it. If these secret manuals were exchanged for contribution points in the contribution hall, they would be worth at least a few 100,000 contribution points. This was already a huge gain. With a thought, Lu Ming kept all the secret manuals in the Temple of Paragon. Little bastard, hand over the secret manuals, or die. At that moment, the Dongyi tribesmen had finally killed the 2 demonic corpse puppets and rushed into the main hall. When they saw the empty bookshelves, their eyes turned red as they looked at Lu Ming with burning desire. The bookshelves were empty, so Lu Ming must have taken them. Lu Ming did not bother to explain. He sneered and said, "I didn't want to fight with you just now. Do you really think I'm afraid of you?" Bam! Lu Ming took a step forward and rushed toward the Dongyi tribesman like the wind. "Kill him!" The Dongyi tribesmen roared and charged toward Lu Ming. Led by 2 4th-grade martial masters, there were 10 of them working together. It was a terrifying sight. Lu Ming moved and dodged the front. In a flash, he appeared at the side. Fire dance! Flowers of flame appeared. When the flowers of flame dissipated, 3 of the Dongyi tribesmen fell to the ground. Their throats had been pierced by spears. Kill. Chapter 158. Whoosh! Lu Ming swept out with his spear. True qi burst out, shattering all the rubble and debris in the air. However, the 2 old men did not stop there. They continued to slash at Lu Ming. Lu Ming held the long spear in his hand and placed it in front of him. Clang! The 2 old men's sabers slashed at Lu Ming's spear, causing a shocking shockwave. Lu Ming's expression changed. His body trembled as he staggered back. He can't hold on any longer. Kill him. The 2 old men were overjoyed when they saw that Lu Ming was forced back. They attacked Lu Ming even more desperately. The remaining 5 Dongyi tribesmen roared furiously and charged toward Lu Ming. For a moment, Lu Ming was attacked from all directions. He seemed to be at a disadvantage and kept retreating. Soon, he retreated to a corner near the exit. Kill him and all the secret manuals here will be ours. Our Dongyi tribe will rise. A 4th-level martial master old man shouted excitedly. The other Dongyi people were also excited. At this moment, a sharp sound broke through the air from the door beam above them. A sword light quickly pierced toward Lu Ming's back. This sword light was fast, accurate, ruthless, and extremely powerful. This was because its owner was a 4th-level martial master expert and a genius of the White Tiger Hall. That's right. The person who launched the sneak attack was one of the 2 4th-level martial masters from the White Tiger Hall. He had been hiding on the door beam since an unknown time. Go to hell, Lu Ming. Don't blame me. Blame yourself for offending the Duanmu clan. As long as I kill you, the Duanmu clan will definitely put me in an important position. A cold and vicious light flashed in the eyes of the young expert from the White Tiger Hall. It was as if he could already see Lu Ming dying at his hands. The Duanmu clan controlled the White Tiger Hall. Most of the disciples who joined the White Tiger Hall chose to rely on the Duanmu clan. Only by relying on the Duanmu clan could they obtain better cultivation resources. Of course, a pervert like Ling Kong who had a strong backing was an exception. But at this moment he suddenly saw Lu Ming's lips curl into a smile. That kind of smile gave off the feeling that some kind of scheme had succeeded. Sure enough, he has made a move. Good, let's get rid of him together. The corners of Lu Ming's mouth curled into a sneer, and his eyes flashed with killing intent. He hadn't used his full strength in the battle with the Dongyi tribe. Otherwise, with his cultivation at the peak of the 1st layer of the martial master realm, he would not have been forced into such a sorry state by 2 4th-layer martial masters and 5 3rd and 2nd-layer martial masters. Everything that happened just now was just an act. In fact, the young man from the White Tiger Hall had followed the Dongyi tribe in. Lu Ming had noticed him as soon as he entered. However, he didn't say anything because he could sense the killing intent of the young man from the White Tiger Hall. Therefore, he pretended that he was no match for his opponent and was completely at a disadvantage. He even sent himself in front of his opponent in order to lure his opponent into attacking him. As expected, the young man from the White Tiger Hall fell into his trap. He thought that he saw a good opportunity and decisively attacked, wanting to kill Lu Ming. However, all of this was within Lu Ming's expectations. Boom! At this moment, Lu Ming's bloodline erupted, and Lu Ming's aura skyrocketed. At the same time, the true qi in his body erupted. Moon seizing. Lu Ming didn't even look at the young man from the White Tiger Hall. He held the end of his spear and swept it out. Buzz. The long spear swept past the sabers of the Dongyi tribe with a terrifying aura. The Dongyi tribe's bodies shook violently, and they quickly retreated with a groan. Lu Ming's long spear didn't stop, and he continued to sweep it towards the young man from the White Tiger Hall. How can this be? The young man from the White Tiger Hall's pupils contracted rapidly. He had charged at Lu Ming with all his might, and it was too late for him to retreat now. He could only grit his teeth and unleash his full strength. The long sword in his hand emitted a powerful sword qi, and he attacked Lu Ming. Boom! However, Lu Ming's long spear easily destroyed his opponent's sword qi. At the same time, the long spear bent in an arc and heavily struck the young man from the White Tiger Hall. Crack! The sound of bones breaking could be heard. The young man from the White Tiger Hall screamed in agony and his body was sent flying. He coughed out large mouthfuls of blood in the air. Die! Lu Ming stomped his foot on the ground, and his body spun rapidly as he flew backward. The long spear in his hand spun rapidly and stabbed at the young man from the White Tiger Hall. Junior brother Lu Ming, don't. The young man from the White Tiger Hall was horrified and he screamed in fear. However, the long spear didn't stop. The long spear pierced the young man's heart and lifted him into the air. Lu Ming, you're so cruel. The young man from the White Tiger Hall glared at Lu Ming with resentment. If you didn't want to kill me, you wouldn't have been killed by my spear. You asked for it. Lu Ming said indifferently. If the young man didn't want to kill him, he wouldn't have been killed by Lu Ming in 2 moves. After all, the young man was a genius from the White Tiger Hall and his combat strength wasn't weak. The young man from the White Tiger Hall was unwilling to accept his defeat. The vitality in his body gradually dissipated. Oh no, he was hiding his strength. Retreat! The Dongyi tribesmen were terrified. One of the elders shouted. He clearly saw that the person who launched the sneak attack was a Realm 4 martial master. However, he was killed by Lu Ming in an instant. Lu Ming's strength was too terrifying. It's too late for you to leave now. Lu Ming controlled his bloodline and devoured the essence blood of the young man from the White Tiger Hall. Then, his body flashed and he charged toward the Dongyi tribesmen. You guys leave quickly. I'll stop him. An elder from the Dongyi tribesmen shouted angrily and turned around to attack Lu Ming. Explode! Lu Ming didn't hesitate to use his strongest move. At this moment, he was in the bloodline eruption stage. When he used the explode move, its power was extremely terrifying. The elder from the Dongyi tribesmen didn't even have time to scream before half of his body exploded. Whoosh whoosh! At this moment, Lu Ming's aura dropped rapidly. The time for the bloodline eruption was up. The remaining Dongyi tribesmen were even more terrified and ran for their lives. Lu Ming stopped and didn't chase after them. The time for the bloodline eruption had passed and his combat strength had weakened. Even if he chased after them, he wouldn't be able to kill them all. Lu Ming immediately devoured the essence blood of the dead Dongyi tribesmen. Not only that, but he also obtained 5 storage rings. As a martial master, it was normal for him to have a storage ring. It could be said that a storage ring was the standard of a martial grandmaster. If a martial grandmaster did not even have a storage ring, then he would be in a miserable state. After putting away the storage rings, Lu Ming moved and left the main hall. After a few breaths, Lu Ming appeared in a small room in the main hall. Lu Ming entered the Temple of Paragon and prepared to refine the essence blood. However, Lu Ming's expression suddenly changed. He realized that the chanting sound had disappeared. In the depths of the Temple of Paragon, there was a strange chanting sound. Under this chanting sound, Lu Ming's mind was exceptionally clear and he was able to comprehend martial techniques at a rapid pace. Chapter 159. Ever since Lu Ming had obtained the Temple of Paragon, the chanting had accompanied Lu Ming for more than a year. The reason why Lu Ming could rise so quickly was because of the chanting. Although Lu Ming did not know where the chanting came from, he seemed to have gotten used to it. As long as he wanted to comprehend martial techniques, he would enter the Temple of Paragon and comprehend martial techniques while listening to the chanting. When did it disappear? Lu Ming furrowed his brows. Is it because I broke through to the martial Grand Master realm? Lu Ming thought. Speaking of which, Lu Ming had not entered the Temple of Paragon ever since he had broken through to the martial Grand Master realm. After breaking through, Lu Ming had accepted the mission to exterminate the Dongyi tribe and rushed to Dongke City through the night. After arriving at Dongke City, Lu Ming had stayed in the military camp for the first few days. Since there were so many people, Lu Ming naturally did not enter the Temple of Paragon. After that, the Dongyi tribe attacked the city. In order to pursue the Dongyi tribe, he had come to this plain. During this process, Lu Ming had not entered the Temple of Paragon even once. Now that he thought about it, it was most likely because he had broken through to the martial Grand Master realm. As expected, it still disappeared. After a while, Lu Ming shook his head and sighed. In fact, he had already expected this result. Since the chanting had such a magical effect and was constantly emitting without stopping, regardless of whether it was man-made or some kind of array, it needed energy. And the energy would eventually be used up. Once it was used up, it would stop. However, he had not expected it to happen after he had broken through to the martial Grand Master realm. So what if there is no chanting? I, Lu Ming, will still be able to rise and comprehend martial techniques quickly. Lu Ming's eyes were filled with determination. Then he stopped thinking about it and started to refine the essence blood. This time, there were 2 first-layer martial grandmasters, 1 second-layer martial grandmaster, and 2 fourth-layer martial grandmasters. The blood chi essence was incomparably majestic. The huge amount of essence was converted into Zhen Qi. Within his dantian, the cyclone spun faster and faster, and the Zhen Qi grew stronger and stronger. Lu Ming began to break through to the second layer of the martial master realm. 3 hours later, a strong aura suddenly erupted from Lu Ming's body. However, in the blink of an eye, this aura was concealed, and Lu Ming opened his eyes. Second layer of martial master, breakthrough. A smile appeared on Lu Ming's face. In total, Lu Ming had swallowed the blood essence of 4 fourth-layer martial masters and a few second-layer and first-layer martial masters. Only then did he break through to the second-layer martial master realm. The amount of energy needed was truly terrifying. However, Lu Ming's bloodline level did not increase. It was still at level 5. It was getting harder and harder to raise the rank of his bloodline. But as long as he could improve, no matter how difficult it was, Lu Ming was confident that he could continue to improve. Now that my cultivation has broken through to the second-layer martial Grand Master realm, if I meet the 2 fifth-layer martial Grand Masters of the Dongyi tribe again, I have no fear. I can even kill them. A confident smile appeared on Lu Ming's face. Let's see what's in their storage rings. Lu Ming moved his hand and 5 storage rings appeared. These were all storage rings of the martial Grand Masters. Lu Ming was looking forward to them. First, there was a first-layer martial Grand Master realm storage ring. The storage ring was very ordinary and could be considered the lowest grade storage ring. However, the items inside still made Lu Ming pleasantly surprised. Spiritual crystals, a whole box of spiritual crystals. There were at least 1,000 pieces. Every piece of spiritual crystal was milky white and emitted a dense spiritual qi. The box was neatly placed. Lu Ming's eyes lit up. Spiritual crystals could only be used by warriors above the martial Grand Master realm because they were filled with dense spiritual qi of heaven and earth. Because this spiritual qi was gathered together, it was extremely ferocious and overbearing. If warriors below the martial Grand Master realm used it to cultivate, they would easily explode and die. Spiritual crystals were the currency used by warriors above the martial Grand Master realm. Spiritual crystals were mainly divided into 4 grades: lower spiritual crystal, middle spiritual crystal, upper spiritual crystal, and supreme spiritual crystal. A piece of lower spiritual crystal was worth 10,000 taels of silver. The spiritual crystals of the first layer Martial Grand Master Realm Warrior were all lower spiritual crystals. 1,000 of them were worth 10 million taels of silver. This was a huge fortune. Lu Ming was naturally pleasantly surprised. The Dongyi tribe lived in the depths of the coastal mountains. They must have found spiritual crystal veins. They are indeed rich. Lu Ming sighed and looked forward to the remaining storage rings even more. A first-layer Martial Grand Master already had 1,000 spiritual crystals. What about a second-layer Martial Grand Master or a fourth-layer Martial Grand Master? In addition to the spiritual crystals, there were a few spiritual weapons in this storage ring. They were all level 2 and were not particularly precious. After tidying up, Lu Ming looked at the next storage ring. This storage ring was also left behind by a first-layer Martial Grand Master from the Dongyi tribe. Inside, there was another box of spiritual crystals. There were a total of 1,200 pieces, more than the previous one. Lu Ming was even more delighted and continued to look. The next storage ring was left behind by a second-layer Martial Grand Master. It did not disappoint Lu Ming. 3,000 pieces, a total of 3,000 pieces. Lu Ming's heart had already begun to tremble. He could not wait to look at the storage ring of the last 4th-level Martial Master Martial Artist. This storage ring was several times larger than the previous storage rings. Inside, there were several boxes. Lu Ming opened it and his eyelids twitched. Spiritual crystals, they were all spiritual crystals. They were neatly arranged in rows. Lu Ming hurriedly counted. There were more than 11,000 pieces, all of which were lower spiritual crystals. Lu Ming sucked in a breath of cold air. Then he was ecstatic. The Dongyi tribe must have found a spiritual crystal mine in the depths of the coastal mountain range. Otherwise, how could there be so many spiritual crystals? Normally, martial artists at the 1st, 2nd, or even 4th level of the Martial Grandmaster realm would rarely have so many spirit crystals on them. This was because Martial Grandmasters needed spirit crystals to cultivate. Even if they had spirit crystals, they would have already been used up. How could they have so many? The 4 Dongyi tribe warriors had a total of 16,200 spiritual crystals. In terms of silver, it was more than 160 million taels of silver. What kind of enormous wealth was this? If these spiritual crystals were exchanged for contribution points, it would be enough for me to use for a while. Lu Ming could not help but laugh. Finally, Lu Ming looked at the storage ring of the young man from the White Tiger Hall. Sure enough, Lu Ming was disappointed. He was obviously a 4th-layer Martial Grandmaster. In the storage ring, there were only a few spiritual weapons, some healing and cultivation elixirs. There were only more than 100 spiritual crystals and 3 million taels of silver. His wealth was not even comparable to a 1st-layer Martial Grandmaster from the Dongyi tribe. Needless to say, the disciples of the Mystic Essence Sword sect must have exchanged their wealth for contribution points. If I snatch all the storage rings from the Dongyi tribe, how many spiritual crystals would I have? Lu Ming's eyes shone with hope. Chapter 160. Now that my cultivation has reached the Martial Grandmaster realm, I wonder if I can go up to the 3rd platform? With this thought, Lu Ming's gaze turned to the 3rd platform after the 99th step. That platform was empty except for a stone platform. Previously, Lu Ming had been unable to go up. Now that the chanting sound had disappeared, would he be able to ascend to the 3rd platform? Lu Ming stood up and walked towards the 3rd platform. Soon he arrived at the 99th step. With one step, Lu Ming stepped onto the 3rd platform without any hindrance. Sure enough, I'm up. Lu Ming's eyes lit up. There was a box on each of the first 2 platforms, which was of great help to Lu Ming. However, this platform was empty. What help could there be? Lu Ming looked around and walked around, but he didn't find anything. Finally, he came to the stone platform. It was a very ordinary square stone platform. However, there was a pit in the middle of the stone platform, which looked a little special. What's this for? Is it an array base? Or is it? Lu Ming looked carefully, but he still couldn't figure it out. This pit is similar to the size of the spiritual crystal. Lu Ming pondered. Then, his palm glowed and a spiritual crystal appeared in his hand. He wanted to try and put the spiritual crystal into the pit. Unexpectedly, as soon as he got close, a strong suction force came from the pit. The spiritual crystal in Lu Ming's hand flew out and into the pit. In the blink of an eye, it disappeared into the pit. Buzz. Then, the pit shook slightly and a hazy light was emitted. However, the light only flashed and disappeared. Then, it fell silent and there was no movement. What's going on? There was clearly movement just now. Could it be that I don't have enough spiritual crystals? If so, I'll continue to add. Lu Ming pondered and immediately took out another piece of spirit crystal. It was also sucked into the pit by the suction force. However, just like before, a light flashed on the stone platform and disappeared. Lu Ming continued to add spiritual crystals. 3, 4, 8, 9. When the 9th piece was added, a bright light shot up into the sky from the stone platform. Around the stone platform, mysterious inscriptions appeared. These inscriptions continued to spread until they covered the entire platform. Finally, a figure condensed on one side of the platform. The face of this figure could not be seen clearly as it stood there with a straight back. Condense a human figure? What is it for? Lu Ming was astonished and walked over. Let's do it, fight me. The figure suddenly spoke. Lu Ming was stunned. He couldn't see the face of this figure. It could be said that it was formed from energy, but it could actually speak. Fight with you? Lu Ming asked. Let's do it, fight me. The figure repeated the previous sentence without the slightest emotion. So it doesn't have any intelligence. Lu Ming heaved a sigh of relief. Then his eyes flickered. After thinking for a while, he suddenly threw out a punch. The Temple of Paragon was extremely mysterious. There must be a reason why he should give it a try since the other party had asked for it. Boom! Lu Ming used the Flame Dragon Fist. However, what shocked Lu Ming was that the other party also threw out a punch at the same time. It was the Flame Dragon Fist. Boom! When the two fists collided, Lu Ming felt a scorching hot true qi surging toward him. He couldn't help but take 3 steps back. When he looked again, the other party had also taken 3 steps back. The True Dragon of Combat Art. The other party is also using the True Dragon of Combat Art. Lu Ming's eyes were filled with horror. Martial techniques could be imitated, but how could one imitate cultivation techniques? However, the other party was really using the True Dragon of Combat Art. Lu Ming could not be wrong. Let's try again. Lu Ming threw out a few punches, but the other party also threw out a few punches. They were all using the Flame Dragon Fist. The two of them exchanged a few punches and then took a few steps back. There's no mistake. It's really the True Dragon of Combat Art. Lu Ming's eyes were filled with disbelief. He felt that fighting with the other party was like fighting with himself. Then what about sword techniques? Lu Ming moved his hand and a battle sword appeared. He used the flowing light sword technique and slashed at the other party. However, the other party also condensed a battle sword in his hand and used the flowing light sword technique. In fact, when Lu Ming used the airborne steps, the other party also used the airborne steps. Astral Fire Spear Technique, Chasing Lightning. Lu Ming put away his combat sword and took out his fiery tongue spear, unleashing his strongest combat power. However, the other party used the Astral Fire Spear Technique and his strength was no weaker than Lu Ming's. It could be said that he was exactly the same as Lu Ming. Whatever martial arts technique Lu Ming used, the figure would also use the same martial arts technique. Even the strength of the technique was the same. Lu Ming finally confirmed that the other party was actually himself, another him condensed by the inscription formation. He was fighting with himself. What a wonderful feeling! Lu Ming's eyes flickered. He had always been fighting with the enemy, but he had never fought with himself. Then let's have a big fight. In that case, Lu Ming was too lazy to think about it. He let go of his body and mind and erupted with all his strength to fight with the figure. However, no matter what means he used, the other party would also use it. No matter how strong he was, the other party was not inferior at all. He was completely himself. Boom, boom. In the blink of an eye, more than 300 moves had been exchanged, but there was still no winner. How could he win against himself? However, Lu Ming's face showed a surprised smile. Wonderful, wonderful. It turns out that there is such a flaw in my martial technique. Moreover, when I use my spear, I also have a bad habit. Lu Ming's eyes were full of ecstasy. In the great battle just now, he discovered his own shortcomings. After more than 300 moves in a row, he tried his best to find the other party's flaw and defeat him in every move. Wasn't finding the other party's flaw the same as finding his own flaw? He found that his spear technique, which he thought was perfect, actually had some shortcomings. Moreover, when he used his spear, he also had a bad habit. These were very subtle. Normally, it would be impossible to find out. Only when he fought with himself with all his strength could he find out. However, how could ordinary people fight with him? At this moment, Lu Ming realized that the figure condensed by the inscription array was more useful than the chanting of scriptures. How good could the cultivation and comprehension of martial techniques be if he fought with himself all the time? Lu Ming felt excited at the thought of it. Continue. Lu Ming recuperated for a while and continued to fight with this figure. Every time, Lu Ming attacked with all his strength. He exchanged hundreds of moves with the other party and only stopped when his genuine qi was exhausted. In this way, Lu Ming stopped 3 times in a row. That was because the figure had suddenly disappeared. He disappeared. What's going on? Chapter 161. Could it be because the spiritual crystals have been used up? Lu Ming thought. It would definitely require energy to form such a figure and have an intense battle with him. Lu Ming walked to the stone platform and found that it had dimmed and returned to its original state. It seems that it needs spiritual crystals to operate. Lu Ming felt relieved after finding the problem. However, it was not the time to continue cultivating. He was still in the small plain. This was a small plain left behind by the ancestors of the Eastern barbarians. It might contain great opportunities and Lu Ming did not want to miss it. I'll study it in the future, Lu Ming muttered. Then he left the Temple of Paragon. Apart from the main hall, there are other places in this place that I haven't explored yet. I'll continue to explore before going to other places. Lu Ming moved and started to explore the dilapidated palace. Most of the palace was dilapidated and collapsed. Only a few places still looked okay. Unfortunately, Lu Ming searched more than 10 rooms, side halls, and main halls but to no avail. It was empty. It seems that there's nothing left in this place. There's still the backyard. If I don't find anything, I'll leave this place. Lu Ming ran to the backyard. The backyard was very spacious, but it was barren and full of weeds. Lu Ming was disappointed. He shook his head and was about to leave. Suddenly, Lu Ming's eyes moved. There was a special place in the middle of the backyard. There was no grass in the area with a radius of 10 meters. It was barren. And right in the middle, there was a rusty iron rod stuck there. The other places were full of weeds, but this was the only place that was barren. It was too special. Lu Ming was very curious. He walked over and looked at it carefully. The ground was made of a kind of grayish-brown rock. It was very hard. Lu Ming stepped on it and it did not move at all. There were no signs of it breaking. No wonder there was no grass. The iron rod was rusty. God knew how long it had been exposed to wind and rain. It's not an iron rod. It's a long spear. After looking at it carefully, Lu Ming was stunned. It was a long spear. However, the spearhead was stuck in the ground. Lu Ming mistook it for an iron rod. This long spear must be extraordinary. I can't miss it. Lu Ming's eyes flashed. Then he grabbed the long spear with both hands and pulled it out. The long spear shook slightly, but he did not pull it out. Lu Ming was taken aback. Although he did not use all his strength just now, the force of his pull was enough to lift up a huge rock that weighed 100,000 pounds. However, he could not pull out a long spear that was stuck in the ground. Lu Ming's eyes lit up. The more this was the case, the more extraordinary the spear was. With a loud shout, Lu Ming unleashed his full strength. Boom! His true chi was boiling and there was a loud boom on the ground. Lu Ming's muscles were bulging. He had the strength to uproot mountains and his aura was unparalleled. Clang. A clanging sound could be heard and Lu Ming finally pulled out the long spear that was stuck in the ground. At this moment, there was a beast roar at the place where the long spear was pulled out. Then, a black shadow condensed from the ground. It was a huge black lizard. However, it was not a physical body. It was an illusory body. The huge lizard roared and pounced on Lu Ming. This is the soul of a demonic beast. Lu Ming was shocked. He quickly retreated. However, the black lizard was only halfway there when it suddenly exploded. It turned into wisps of black gas and dissipated. Phew! Lu Ming exhaled. It seemed that it was just a demonic beast's remnant soul. God knows how long it had been suppressed. It was so weak that it dissipated on its own. The scene fell into silence once more, and everything returned to normal. Lu Ming relaxed and looked at the long spear in his hand. The long spear was 8 feet long. The tip of the spear was 8 inches long. However, it was covered in rust. It was almost impossible to see its original appearance. However, the weight of the long spear was shocking. Lu Ming estimated that it was at least 10,000 pounds. This weight is not bad. Lu Ming held the long spear and waved it a few times. The long spear swept through the air and let out a rumbling sound. It was like thunder in the 9 heavens. What made Lu Ming very satisfied was that the softness and elasticity of the long spear were not bad. It was much better than the fire-tongue spear. Although he could not tell what level this long spear was, Lu Ming liked it very much just based on its weight and elasticity. There are words. At this moment, Lu Ming noticed that there were 2 small words on the shaft of the spear. Demon suppression. Looking carefully, he realized that it was the 2 words demon suppression. Demon suppression? Demon suppression spear. What a domineering name. Could it be that the demonic beast remnant soul of that lizard was the demonic beast suppressed by the demon suppression spear? Lu Ming thought. Then, he waved it a few more times and felt that it was very comfortable. The only bad thing was that the body of the spear was rusty. It was very ugly, like a broken spear. Lu Ming planned to find an inscriber to refine it when he returned to the Mystic Essence Sword sect. After putting away the demon suppression spear, Lu Ming looked around and did not find anything else. Lu Ming's figure flashed and he left the place. At this moment, a few hundred miles away from Lu Ming, there was a majestic mountain peak. However, the mountain peak was surrounded by a thick fog. The fog was so thick that it could not be dispersed. Even if a martial artist's eyesight was better than an ordinary person's, he would not be able to see his fingers in the fog. At the outermost edge of the fog, there were hundreds of stone pillars. In front of the stone pillars stood dozens of figures. These were the experts of the Dongi tribe. At the very front stood 3 figures. 2 of them were the Dongi tribe's 5th-level martial grandmasters. The other was a figure wrapped in a black robe and a bamboo hat. He was so skinny that it was impossible to see his face clearly. However, the 2 5th-grade martial grandmasters seemed to be respectful to the man in the black robe and bamboo hat. If I'm not wrong, this mountain is the abode left behind by the Dongi tribe's king. Continue to carve inscriptions on the stone pillars according to my method. Soon, the formation will be broken and the fog will disperse. The man in the black robe and bamboo hat instructed, his voice low and hoarse. Yes, if the Dongi tribe can obtain the inheritance of our ancestor, we will never forget Senior's kindness. One of the 5th-grade martial grandmasters cupped his fists respectfully. Then, the 2 old men walked forward and began to carve inscriptions on the stone pillars. Half an hour later, the hundreds of stone pillars suddenly emitted a dazzling light. The fog around them also began to disperse slowly. At the scene, the Dongi tribesmen were ecstatic. Their eyes were burning with passion. Not long after, the fog dispersed completely. The mountain peak that had been hidden in the fog was finally revealed. It turned out to be a wolf-shaped mountain. The entire mountain was barren, as if it had been carved into a giant wolf by a giant boulder. You're tuning in to the Han Lee's Immortal Journey YouTube channel. Don't forget to subscribe and join us on this journey to catch the most captivating stories.